The topic will be dans la ville, so in the town, dans la ville. Okay, so let's start now. Une rue. Okay, remember final not pronounced. Une rue. Une voie ferrée. Final here not pronounced, and then this one is not pronounced either. Une voie ferrée. Une autoroute. Une autoroute. Un boulevard. Final D not pronounced. Un boulevard. Un lampadaire. Final not pronounced. Un lampadaire. Une aire de stationnement. Une aire de stationnement. Un musée. Final not pronounced. Un musée. Un immeuble. So you can see I'm making this little liaison between the two. Un immeuble. Final not pronounced. Un immeuble. Un stade. Same thing here. Final is not pronounced. Un stade. Un gratte-ciel. Un gratte-ciel. Un restaurant. Final T not pronounced. Un restaurant. Un hôtel. So you can see that I'm making this little liaison, this little link between the two. Un hôtel. Un hôtel. All right? Un terre-plein. Un terre-plein. Remember this E-I-N nasal. So it goes in your nose and it's un plein, plein. Un terre-plein. Une gare. Okay, remember when you get these G and A together, the sound is g, ga, ga. Une gare, final not pronounced. Une gare. Une tour. Okay, O-U-U, une tour. Un palais des congrès. Final S here and here are not pronounced. Un palais des congrès. Un parc. Un parc. Un espace vert. First thing, you've got this little link between the two. Un espace vert. Final not pronounced, and then final T not pronounced. Un espace vert. Un trottoir. Un trottoir. Une borne d'incendie. Okay, final here not pronounced, final here not pronounced. Une borne d'incendie. And then you get the nasal. Un, en, incendie. Une borne d'incendie. Un égout. Okay, little link between the two. Un égout. Final T not pronounced. Un égout. Une conduite d'eau potable. Une conduite d'eau potable. Final here and here are not pronounced. And then when you combine these two, or sorry, these three vowels A, U, you get the sound O. Only O. Okay? Une conduite d'eau potable. Okay? Une conduite de gaz. Final not pronounced here. Une conduite de gaz. Un câble électrique. Final here and here are not pronounced. Un câble électrique. Un abribus. Un abribus. Un arrêt d'autobus. So you can hear this little link between the two. Un arrêt d'autobus. Un passage pour piétons. Un passage pour piétons. Final S here, not pronounced, and then final not pronounced. Un passage pour piétons. Des feux de circulation. So here, final X not pronounced. Des feux de circulation. Une chaussée. Okay, here, final not pronounced. And then you get the double S between two vowels, so it's really strong. I mean, the S is s. Okay, so une chaussée. Un réverbère. Final not pronounced. Un ré. So here you get this accent aigu, et, and then here you get this accent grave, é. Okay, et, é. So it goes like réverbère. Okay, un réverbère. Une maison individuelle. So remember when you get this and then double consonant, and especially here it's the same one, that's the idea. It will open the sound of so you will pronounce it like é. Okay, individuel, uel. Okay, une maison individuelle. Une maison individuelle jumelée. Final here, not pronounced. Une maison individuelle jumelée. Des appartements en copropriété. Remember, final S and final T are not pronounced here. Des appartements, little liaison here, des appartements en copropriété. Des maisons en rangée. Final and final S are not pronounced. Des maisons en rangée. Une tour d'habitation. Remember, H doesn't exist in French, well, in most of the cases, so it does mean that you don't pronounce it, all right? So, d'habitation. Une tour d'habitation. Dans la maison. So, let's start now. Une entrée principale. Un vestibule. Un vestiaire. Un couloir, un escalier, une buanderie. Okay, so one more time. Une entrée principale, un vestibule, un vestiaire, un couloir, un escalier, une buanderie. Un salon, une cheminée, une salle à manger, une cuisine, des WC, une salle de séjour. So one more time. Un salon, une cheminée, une salle à manger, une cuisine, des WC, une salle de séjour. Un rez-de-chaussée. Un étage. Un palier. Une chambre principale. Une garde-robe. Une chambre. One more time. Un rez-de-chaussée. Un étage. Un palier. Une chambre principale. Une garde-robe. Une chambre. Une fenêtre. Une porte-fenêtre. Une salle de bain. Une douche. Une baignoire. Une porte pliante. So one more time. Une fenêtre. Une porte-fenêtre. Une salle de bain. Une douche. Une baignoire. Une porte pliante. Une table, une desserte, un fauteuil, un canapé, un banc, un tabouret. One more time. Une table, une desserte, un fauteuil, un canapé, un banc, un tabouret. Une chaise, un lit, une armoire, un coffre, une commode, un rideau, okay? Une chaise, un lit, une armoire, un coffre, une commode, un rideau. We'll have the pleasure to discover together two verbs. So it's quite interesting because we've got first the verb savoir and then we've got the verb connaître. And if you want to translate that, directly in English, well, basically they mean the same thing and it would be translated with to know. Okay, so two verbs for the same meaning. What does it mean? It means that you will have two different uses of these verbs. The first one, savoir, well, the rule is that you will use savoir plus a verb. So after that, if you want to add a verb, then you will have to use savoir. Or then if you want to put, as we say, structure verbale, so it's just somehow like a sentence, okay? So if you want to introduce a sentence after savoir, then after to know, then that's savoir that you will have to use, okay? But connaître, so same meaning, as I said, it's to know, okay? You will use connaître only if you want to put a name or a noun after connaître, okay? So that's the main difference of use between savoir and connaître. Okay, so connaître plus a noun avec un nom, and then savoir with a verb or then structure or verbal structure or let's say a sentence if you want. Okay, so first, of course, we should remember how to conjugate savoir at the present form here. Okay, je sais, tu sais, il sait, elle sait. Nous savons, vous savez, ils savent, elles savent. Okay, so if you look carefully here, you write it S-A-I-S, well, the same way here. Here you write it S-A-I-T, okay, but then phonetically these three forms are the same, and it's c'est, okay? Je sais, tu sais, il sait, elle sait. All right, so let's see now the passé composé form. J'ai su, tu as su, il a su, elle a su, nous avons su, vous avez su, ils ont su. Okay, so if you remember, when we introduced this passé composé form, it was in Unit 5, if my memory is correct. Then you put first, in most of the cases, the verb avoir at the present form, and then you put this participe passé form. And the participe passé form for savoir is su, okay, so it doesn't change. That's the reason why you will put it right here after each form. Okay, so j'ai su, tu as su, il a su, elle a su, nous avons su, little liaison here, vous avez su, same thing here. Ils ont su, little liaison between the two. Elles ont su. Okay? And now, let's see connaître at the present form. Je connais. Tu connais. Il connaît. Elle connaît. Nous connaissons. Vous connaissez. Ils connaissent. Elles connaissent. All right, same thing as we had for savoir. If you look carefully here, connaît AIS, and then connaît AIT. So don't forget this circumflex, even if you don't pronounce it well, you should write it. Well, you pronounce these three forms the same way. Okay, connaît, connaît, and then connaît. All right? Let's see how it goes for the passé composé form. J'ai connu, tu as connu, il a connu, elle a connu, sorry, nous avons connu, vous avez connu, ils ont connu, elles ont connu. Okay, so same rule, first avoir at the present form, then participe passé form of connaître, it's connu. All right, so it will go everywhere for each person here. Okay, j'ai connu, tu as connu, il a connu, elle a connu, nous avons connu, vous avez connu, ils ont connu, elles ont connu. Okay, and now for the future form, as it was introduced in the previous lesson, unit 6. So savoir at the future form, and it goes like je saurai, tu sauras, il saura, elle saura, nous saurons, vous saurez, ils sauront, elles sauront. And then for connaître at the future form, je connaîtrai, tu connaîtras, il connaîtra, elle connaîtra, nous connaîtrons, vous connaîtrez, ils connaîtront, elles connaîtront. All right? So, let's see a few examples now. So the first one, remember, savoir, so you construct it with a verb or a sentence, okay? In that case, I just put a verb. Je sais chanter. Okay, so remember, savoir, to know, chanter, to sing. Je sais chanter. All right, so second verb here, chanter. Well, the rule in French is that if you've got a structure like that with two verbs, the second verb should be all the time at the infinitive. Okay, je sais chanter, like that. All right. If you put the same sentence at the passé composé, as we saw previously, the passé composé form of savoir, it goes like j'ai su chanter. All right. And then the future form, je saurais chanter. Okay. So it's quite easy. Hein? Je sais chanter, j'ai su chanter, je saurais chanter. That's it. Let's see connaître now. Je connais cette personne. Okay. So connaître, to know, okay? And then cette personne, person is person, and it's feminine, so if you want to put this, you should put it at the feminine, so it's this person, cette personne. Je connais cette personne. Passé composé, j'ai connu cette personne, and then the future form, je connaîtrai cette personne. Alright? So it's not that difficult, okay? But, of course, there is one exception. And the exception is savoir plus a noun. Okay, so you will use this structure only if you want to introduce this concept that we call in French par cœur, so by heart. Let's see one example. Je sais ma leçon. So in that case, savoir, to know, ma leçon, my lesson. Okay, so in that sentence, when you use je sais ma leçon, you really want to say that you know your lesson by heart. Okay, that's the reason why we use savoir in that case. Okay, same thing for the second example. Je sais mon texte, my text, or then my lines if you want. Je sais mon texte, okay, so it's the same. You want to introduce this idea that you know your text or your lines by heart. Okay, and that's the only exception when we will use savoir plus a noun. Alright? Le conditionnel présent. So basically the conditionnel is, as in English, this conditional form, so would, could, okay, but of course, as in English, we've got different tenses for that, and the first one that we will see, so the more classic tense that we usually use, when we talk about the conditionnel, it's the present form. Okay, so let's start now. Le conditionnel présent. So in this lesson, we'll see first la formation, so the way to build it, to make it, and then, of course, l'emploi, so when you should use this conditionnel présent form, okay? So let's first start, if that's okay with you, with the formation, the way to make it. So you'll see that it's quite easy in a way, and normally that's the reason why we introduce it right after the future tense. So if you didn't see the video regarding the future tense, I definitely advise you to do it because it will be more clear for you. So it's Unit 6, I don't remember the lesson, but check Unit 6, sorry, and then le futur, and you'll find it, okay? Because the way we construct this conditionnel présent is the same way that we construct the future, okay? The only difference will be the endings, all right? So let's take the first example that we've got here. Parler belongs to the first group of verbs. Remember, we've got 3 in French. And the first group of verb is ending with er, like here. Okay? So these verbs are regular. So that's a good news, and normally that's the reason why we start with them. So you don't have to change your verb. So parler is like that. You will keep it like that, and based on this form, after that you will add the endings, okay? And for je, the ending will be AIS, okay? So you don't need to modify your infinitive form. The basic form is like that, it goes there, and right after you just add the ending AIS, and you get je parlerai. All right? So it's quite simple. Second group, so verbs ending with ER. Be careful, not all the verbs ending with ER, but a quite decent amount of them belongs to the second group, but then still it will be quite easy because it is exactly the same way. You don't modify your infinitive form, you just keep it like that, all right? And after that, you add your ending. Je finirai. So AIS. Je finirai. All right, so it's quite easy. You keep your basic form, your infinitive form, and right after, you just put the ending. Okay? For the third group of verbs, so of course, we will have some exceptions, so we'll see that a bit later in this lesson. But still, the main rule is if it's ending like lire to read, okay, with this well, the idea is that you will take this away, as we quite usually do in French, okay, and after that you will add your ending. Je lirai. All right, so the rule goes like, if you've got final then you take it away, you've got your form here, L-I-R, and then you add your ending, A-I-S, je lirai, okay? So you've got 3 forms here, and they're actually the, well, conditional présent forms. Je parlerai, je finirai, je lirai, okay? Parler is to talk or to speak, finir to finish or to end, lire to read, okay? So the endings now. So we saw that previously that, well, the ending for je will be, the ending for je will be AIS, okay? The ending for tu will be, well, the same, AIS. The ending for il, elle will be AIT, okay? The good news is that even if we write them differently, like you see here, we pronounce them the same way. And it goes like e. All right? So as usual in French, what you pronounce, well, it's not that difficult in a way, but then remember how to write them. AIS for je, AIS for tu, AIT for il, elle. So now let's see nous, and nous goes like I-O-N-S, okay, and it should be pronounced ion. Remember, final S is not pronounced. Ion, okay. Then for vous, it goes like I-E-Z, and it goes like ye, okay. Remember, when you get this I before, it goes like ye, okay, ye, So that's the reason why we had this yon here and then ye. All right, and the last one. So even if it looks scary because you've got three vowels here and then nt, okay, a, I, e, n, t. So as usual, that's the way you should write it. But then phonetically, the good news is that you pronounce it e. So the same way that we had here, e here, e, and then e. Okay, so let's pronounce them. E, yon, ye, e. So if you look carefully, you've got only three phonetical pronunciation. The first one is here and here. It's the same. So it's e. After that, we've got this yon. And after that, we've got this ye. All right? So let's see now for parler. Parler, it's to speak or to talk. Okay, so je parlerai. Tu parlerais. Il parlerait. Elle parlerait. Nous parlerions. Vous parleriez. Il parlerait. Elle parlerait. Second example, choisir from the second group of verbs. Choisir is to choose. Je choisirais. Tu choisirais. Il choisirait. Elle choisirait. Nous choisirions. Vous choisiriez. Il choisirait. Elle choisirait. Okay, not that difficult. The last example, so for the third group, it's écrire. Écrire is to write. Okay, so same rule. If you remember, the example was with lire, to read, but then it's exactly the same rule. So if you look carefully, it's ending with this e. Okay, so you take it away, and after that you put the ending. J'écrirais. Tu écrirais. Il écrirait. Elle écrirait. Nous écririons. Vous écririez. Ils écriraient. Elles écriraient. Alright, so it's not that difficult anyway. But of course, we've got some exceptions, as I said in the beginning. So the idea for these exceptions is that the verb will change. So endings will be the same, so that's one good news. So all the endings that we saw previously, well, they will be the same, but then you've got to remember the way the verb will change. So if you saw, that's the reason why I spoke about the future lesson. If you saw the future lesson and you remember the way these verbs are changing for the future, the good news is that they will be changing the same way. So être will become sœur. All right? And then after that, you will have to put the endings. Je serai. All right? So you will keep this sœur all the time for your conjugation. And after that, you will add all the endings that we saw. Okay? Avoir will become or. Same thing here. After that, you will add all the endings. So, tu aurais. Aller will become ir. And you'll get il irait, elle irait. Faire will become faire. Nous ferions. Savoir will become saur. Vous sauriez. Voir will become ver. Il verrait, elle verrait. Okay, so let's see them one more time. So, être, to be, je serais. Avoir, to have, tu aurais. Aller, to go, il irait, elle irait. Faire, to do, nous ferions. Savoir, to know, vous sauriez. Voir, to see, il verrait, elle verrait. All right, so one more list of exceptions. Pouvoir will become pour. Je pourrais. Vouloir will become voudre. Tu voudrais. Pleuvoir will become pleuvre. il pleuvrait. Devoir will become devre, nous devrions. Venir will become viendre, vous viendriez. Courir will become court, il courrait, elle courrait. Alright, so let's see them one more time. Pouvoir, can, je pourrais. Vouloir, to want, tu voudrais. Pleuvoir, to rain, il pleuvrait. Devoir, to have to, nous devrions. Venir, to come, vous viendriez. Courir, to run, il courrait, elle courrait. Alright, so it was the first thing regarding the conditionnel présent, and then as I said, regarding the fact that it's quite close to the future, so the important thing is to remember that the endings for the future are AI, AS, A, ONS, EZ, ONT. Okay, but then for the conditionnel présent, if you remember them, it was AIS, AIS, AIT, IONS, IEZ, AIENT. So to be totally honest, if you think about that, because basically we construct these two tenses the same way, okay, so the endings here and here will be the only way to make the difference between the future and the conditional. So it's quite important to really remember them by heart. Okay, so remember futur, AI, AS, A, ONS, EZ, ONT, but then conditionnel présent, AIS, AIS, AIT, IONS, IEZ, AIENT. Okay? And now let's see when we should use this conditionnel présent, because that's the most important thing. The first situation would be to express a desire or a wish, exprimer un désir ou un souhait. Okay? J'aimerais être en vacances. Aimer, to like or to love. Okay? And here you get the conditional form. Être, to be. En vacances, on vacation. Holidays. J'aimerais être en vacances. Second use will be if you want to donner un conseil, to give an advice. Vous devriez apprendre le français. Okay, devoir, to have to, but then in that case when you say vous devriez, you should. That would be the more correct translation. Vous devriez apprendre, apprendre is to learn, le français, French. And then if you want to ask something politely, that's the tense you should definitely use, and especially if you go in a coffee restaurant or if you go in a shop and you want to ask for something, then use this conditional form. I mean, trust me, it's quite important. Okay? Je voudrais un café, s'il vous plaît. Okay? Je voudrais un café, s'il vous plaît. Okay? So let's read them one more time. J'aimerais être en vacances. Vous devriez apprendre le français. Je voudrais un café, s'il vous plaît. Another use of this conditionnel présent is if you want to construct a sentence, like in English, for instance, with this if. Okay? So if in French is si. And then the rule is quite strict in French. If you start with this if, si, then it should be followed by the imparfait form. We didn't see this form yet. It will come in the next lesson or in the next unit, sorry. So no stress about that. It's just an example, but it's just for you to know that if you want to construct this if structure, then it should be followed by imparfait. Then comes le conditionnel. Okay, so let's take one example. Si j'avais le temps, je ferai du sport. Okay? So, si j'avais le temps, so if I had, it's the same in English, huh? You put this, I had. Si j'avais le temps, so time, je ferais, remember it was faire, to do, but then at the conditionnel form, du sport. Okay? Another example. Si j'étais riche, so riche, rich, était, it's to be, remember, je voyagerais, voyager is to travel, autour du monde, around the world. Oops. And then the last one. Si elle était là, so être, to be, là, here, nous irions, so remember it was to go, aller, and it becomes ir, irions, nous promener. Okay, so se promener, to have a walk. Question avec qui et que. So it's quite important, so please take the time to listen to me. So let's start now. Les questions avec qui et que. So we'll first start with qui, and then after that we'll see que. Alright? So the first thing, qui, and it's starting right now. Qui est-ce qui parle? So it's a question, okay? Qui est-ce qui parle? Second example would be, qui est-ce que tu regardes? Okay, so the first one, qui est-ce qui parle? And then, qui est-ce que tu regardes? So in both cases, well, these questions are mostly for oral use, because when we add this est-ce qui, est-ce que, normally it's when you talk, okay? If you write, you don't really need to put them. We've got some more formal way to write questions. We saw that previously, okay? But still, it's possible orally to use these structures. So the question is, why do we use qui here and qui here, and then qui here and que here, okay? Because it can look a bit messy at the beginning, especially if you don't really know how to use or how to structure that. So the first thing that we've got to remember, yes, it's here. So the first part here, this qui, well, we will use this qui here just because we want to have the information, and it concerns a person. Who, okay? Qui means who when we start the question with it, okay? Qui est-ce qui parle? Qui est-ce que tu regardes? And then we've got the second part here, as we saw, and it's quite interesting because we've got two options here, the first one and the second one. So the first one, you will use qui just because you will ask the question regarding the subject of the verb. You get the verb here, parler, okay? And the information that you want to have concerns the subject of this verb. And then here we will use que just because we want to have the information concerning the object of the verb. So you've got regarder here, but then if you look carefully, you already have the subject. It's tu regardes, okay? So, qui est-ce qui parle? So if you want to translate it directly, you could translate it like, who is talking? Okay? Qui est-ce qui parle? Alright, so here you want to have the information regarding the person, and then here you want to have the information regarding the subject of the verb, parler. Okay? And here, qui est-ce que tu regardes? So, who are you watching? So, first thing here, because you want to have this information, the information regarding a person, qui est-ce que, and here it will be the object of the verb, so you are watching someone. Okay? So, let's see a few examples. The first one, qui est-ce qui parle? And then the answer could be, ma femme parle. My wife talks or is talking. Okay? So in that case, you can see that in the answer that you give here, it's ma femme parle. Okay? So it's the subject, ma femme parle. And then the second example we had, it's qui est-ce que tu regardes? Okay? Je regarde mon ami. Okay, mon ami, my friend. regarder was to watch or to look. Okay? Je regarde mon ami. And you can see here that it's, well, basically it's quite clear. It's quite clear. So qui, just because you want the information for a person, and then the second qui, just because it will be the subject. Ma femme parle. Okay? Here, qui, because it's the person. Mon ami, my friend, it's a person. And then que, just because if you look carefully, it comes after your verb, because it's not the subject, it's the object. Okay, grammatical object. We're not talking about an object, but a grammatical object. So it can be a person, it could be a dog, animal, or an object if you want. Okay, so je regarde mon ami. All right. Now let's see que. First question. Qu'est-ce qui fait ce bruit? Okay. Second question. Qu'est-ce que tu fais? All right. So remember that even if you don't have the que here, but you get this qu, all right, it does mean that previously we had the here and here, but then as usual, if you look carefully, we've got here another starting here. So we've got to take our away. Okay. So let's see now. First part, we use this que because we want to have the information regarding a thing. Okay, so we had qui previously and it was for a person, and then que it's for a thing. So it's not for a person, so que will be for a thing when you start the question with it. Okay, and then here, so remember we've got this qui here, and then we've got this que here. Well, it will be exactly the same idea that we had previously. So you will use qui here just because you want the information regarding the subject of the verb. You've got the verb here, to do. Okay. And then here you put this que just because you want to have the answer with the object of the verb. Okay. You've got the verb here, faire, to do, same verb. But then you've got the subject. Tu fais, you do. Okay? So the first question, qu'est-ce qui fait ce bruit? What is doing this noise? Qu'est-ce qui fait ce bruit? Or this sound, if you want. Qu'est-ce que tu fais? What are you doing? Okay? So let's see now the same question. Qu'est-ce qui fait ce bruit? And the answer would be la voiture de mon père fait ce bruit. Okay? My father's car. Okay? La voiture de mon père. So if you translate it directly, it's the car of my father. And then you've got the verb. Okay? But then this long thing is the subject. La voiture de mon père fait ce bruit. Okay? So that's the reason why first we had this que, because it's a thing, it's not a person, okay? And then qui here, because it's the subject of the verb faire. Okay? Second question, qu'est-ce que tu fais? So if you remember carefully, it was, what are you doing? Qu'est-ce que tu fais? And the answer, je prépare un chocolat chaud. Okay, so I wanted to put another verb in the answer just to well, show you that is you don't really need to answer with the same verb, you know. Qu'est-ce que tu fais? What are you doing? Je prépare, so I prepare. Je prépare, and then this is the object of the verb. So the object, just let me repeat, the grammatical object of the verb. So je prépare un chocolat chaud. All right. So now remember that we can, of course, construct these things with preposition, okay? Just because in French we've got verbs, and verbs are in some cases constructed with preposition, so you will need to remember these things. So preposition can be à, avec, de, pour, and then chez. Okay? À qui est-ce que tu parles? Okay, remember, so parler, to talk, is constructed with à. to talk to, okay? Parler à quelqu'un. So if you want to know à qui est-ce que tu parles, who are you talking to, okay? À qui est-ce que tu parles? So it doesn't change. You just need to first start with the preposition and then you continue your structure. Okay? Jouer, jouer it's to play. Okay? And then normally, if you're talking about a sport or activity, so sport or activity, then we tend to use this preposition à with it. Okay, so play, but then à, and then the name of the activity. It could be football, or it could be basketball, or it could be whatever. Okay? À quoi est-ce que tu joues? And then now, I assume that you will tell me, oh, have a look at that. What on earth is going on? Why do we have this quoi and not que? Okay, well, because that's the rule, and we'll see that, but that's the rule in French. If you want to construct a question like here with que, but then it is constructed with a preposition, then que will change and then it will become quoi. Okay, that's the reason why. Qui doesn't change, que will be transformed into quoi. So that's the reason why here we've got à quoi est-ce que tu joues? Okay? Now, avec qui est-ce que tu viens? So venir is coming, avec, with, okay? Avec qui est-ce que tu viens? Avec quoi est-ce que tu écris? Écrire is to write, okay? Same thing, with, okay? And then it's exactly the same rule, remember, I told you that, que becomes quoi here. That's it. Avec quoi est-ce que tu écris? Okay? So remember, preposition with qui, no problem at all. But then preposition plus que, non. You will have to use quoi. Okay? So remember, that's quite important because it can sound a bit strange if you're using this que instead of quoi with the preposition. Les nombres ordinaux. Les nombres ordinaux, premier, première. Okay, so you've got here the English version, so first, okay? But then as usually in French, we've got the difference between the masculine form and the feminine form, okay? So I will write here first masculine, then feminine, and I will read both, okay? So premier, première. Deuxième, second, seconde. Okay, so it's quite interesting because here you've got deuxième and then it doesn't change. It's the masculine or the feminine form is exactly the same. So that's a good news. And then we've got here another option, second or seconde. Okay, in that case, it does mean that nothing is coming after. Okay, so deuxième usually means that you've got after that third, fourth, etc. Okay, but then second normally it's the end. Okay, it's the second one. Okay, troisième. Okay, masculine form, feminine form, the same. Quatrième, cinquième, sixième. Okay, one more time. Premier, première, deuxième, second, seconde, troisième, quatrième, cinquième, sixième, septième, huitième, neuvième, dixième, onzième, douzième. So far, I assume that it's not that difficult. You've got to remember that it's M, okay. Septième, huitième, neuvième, dixième, onzième, douzième, treizième, quatorzième, quinzième, seizième, dix-septième, dix-huitième. Okay. Treizième, quatorzième, quinzième, seizième, dix-septième, 18e, 19e, 20e, 21e, centième, millième, 1001e. Ok? 19e, 20e, 21e, centième, millième, 1001e. In this lesson, we'll only focus on the verb être. Okay? So it will be a short one, but still quite important. Je serai, tu serais, il serait, elle serait, nous serions, vous seriez, il serait, elle serait. Alright, so remember, conditionnel présent, so if you want to translate directly this je serais, it's I would be, okay? But then in French we've got only one form like that. Remember, so AIS, but then you don't pronounce the final S. Je serais. Same rule here, no pronunciation of the final S. Tu serais. Phonetically, it is the same. And then the good news here, it will be exactly the same. So final T is not pronounced. So phonetically, you've got the same form as we had previously. Il serait, elle serait. Okay, so one more time. Je serais, tu serais, il serait, elle serait. Alright? So then, final S not pronounced. And then this is this yon, yon. Remember, it goes in your nose. It's nasal. Yon. Nous serions. Okay? Then, vous seriez. And last but not least, and remember, it's quite strange, but A-I-E-N-T, many letters, only one simple sound, E, as we had here, here, and here. It's exactly the same sound. Il serait, elle serait. Alright? Je serais, tu serais, il serait, elle serait, nous serions, vous seriez, il serait, elle serait. In this lesson, we'll focus on the conditional present form of avoir, to have, okay? So, let's see now how it goes. J'aurais, tu aurais, il aurait, elle aurait, nous aurions, vous auriez, ils auraient, elles auraient. Alright, so if you remember carefully, this conditional present form, so it was introduced in this unit, so check the unit 7 and then put conditional present, you will find the whole description and the whole lesson of conditional present, but still, here, you can see that j'aurais, well, if you want to translate it directly, it would be I would have, okay, but then in French we've got only one form here, and then take a good look at the endings, AIS, AIS, AIT, IONS, IEZ, IENT, okay? The endings for the conditional present form. Okay, so let's see how you pronounce them now. J'aurais, so final S, not pronounced. J'aurais, then same thing here. Tu aurais, you don't pronounce the final S. Il aurait, same thing here. Final T is not pronounced. Elle aurait, okay? So you've got the same pronunciation here for the three first forms. J'aurais, tu aurais, il aurait, elle aurait, okay? Then, nous aurions, so this little link between the two, this liaison, nous aurions, final S, not pronounced. Vous auriez, little link between the two, vous auriez, and then, ils auraient, little link, but then, look, A-I-E-N-T like that, and you only pronounce E, like we had here. It will be exactly the same pronunciation here. Ils auraient, elles auraient. Okay, so let's see that one more time. J'aurais, tu aurais, il aurait, elle aurait, nous aurions, vous auriez, ils auraient, elles auraient. Bonjour à tous and welcome to Learn French with Vincent, and this is Unité 7, leçon K. And in this lesson we'll discover together the verb aller, so aller means to go, and especially the conditionnel présent form of this verb. Okay, so let's start right now. The first form goes like j'irai. Tu irais. Il irait. Elle irait. Nous irions. Vous iriez. Ils iraient. Elles iraient. Okay, so let's check them one more time. The first one, j'irai. Okay, remember, final S not pronounced. J'irai. Tu irais. Same thing here, final S not pronounced. Tu irais. And then, il, masculine form. Irait, final T not pronounced. So what you can see is that these form, and these form are actually pronounced the same way. Okay, so il irait, elle irait. Okay, then nous irions. Okay, so let's make this little liaison between the two. Nous irions, final S not pronounced. Nous irions. Then vous iriez. So same thing here, make the liaison. Vous iriez. Remember, when you get this EZ at the end, you get the sound E. Okay, iriez, iriez, and then vous iriez. All right, and the final form, ils iraient. Okay, so remember, make the liaison as well. You get this S and then the vowel after. So ils iraient, and then if you look carefully, you get A-I-E-N-T. Okay, but then phonetically it goes like E. Okay, so technically these form and these forms here are pronounced the same way, and it goes like irait. Okay, so ils iraient, and then the feminine, elles iraient. Alright, so j'irais, tu irais, il irait, elle irait, nous irions, vous iriez, ils iraient, elles iraient. Okay, so that's it for the conditionnel présent form of the verb aller. Aller, remember, it was to go, and then you get the YouTube channel here, and it's youtube.com/imagier if you want more videos, and then the website is here and it's waiting for you, imagier.net. Have a great day. Bye bye. And it's lequel and laquelle. Okay, so first thing, well, let's see what lequel is. Lequel, well, basically it's when you want to replace this quel. So the meaning of quel is what, okay, then plus a noun. D'accord? So quel plus un nom, okay? And when you want to replace this group, so what plus a noun, then you can have the lequel instead. Okay? Remember that in that case, we'll see that a bit later in this lesson, but lequel, it will be for the singular masculine. Okay, then let's see how it goes for the feminine form, singular as well. So it will be laquelle. Okay, and then it will replace this quel, so what, but in that case, as you remember probably, we've got the feminine and the masculine form plus a noun, so plus un nom. Okay, so if you want to replace quel plus un nom, then you will have to use laquelle. So this is the feminine form and this is the singular feminine form. Okay, so let's see now the singular form and the plural form. So the first form that we'll see will be the masculine, so it will be, as we saw, lequel. Okay, so remember, you've got to pronounce it lequel, even if you've got this QU. Okay, remember that this U phonetically doesn't exist, so lequel. Then for the plural form, you will add this S here and then S at the end. Okay, and it will give you the pronunciation lesquels. All right, so final S is not pronounced. So here, when you get this L-E-S, okay, it's just like the article, if you remember, les. Okay, so it goes like lesquels. All right, and then the feminine form, so singular, we saw it laquelle. Okay, so basically same rule, Q-U, U is not pronounced here, and then you get this E-double-L-E, well, phonetically here, it is the same as what we have here, so laquelle. So the only difference between the feminine and the masculine form is this first part, okay? Laquelle, lequel, All right, phonetically, I mean. Now, of course, if you write them, you get to put this double L here. And then let's see for the plural form. So it will be quite logical in a way because we will have this plural form. So les, okay, as we had here, les, okay. And then quel, you just add this final S at the end, okay. And the good news is that phonetically, it's lesquels here for the masculine form, and then lesquels for the feminine form. All right, so phonetically it's exactly the same when we talk about the plural form here, but then if you want to write it correctly, remember that for the masculine it will be ELS at the end here, and then ELLES at the end for the feminine. All right, so let's see a few examples. So the first one, il y a deux cafés. Okay, so if you want to translate directly, it would be there are two coffees. Lequel veux-tu? So of course you could ask the same question and you could put this quel café veux-tu? What? Let's translate it straight, it would be more clear. Quel café veux-tu would be translated like what coffee do you want? Okay? In that case, okay, when you use this lequel, well, technically you could translate it directly like which one, okay? Which one do you want? Okay, so il y a deux cafés, lequel, so in that case, just to avoid repeating quel café, okay? Veux-tu, so remember, vouloir is to want, tu, you, okay? Do you want? So, lequel veux-tu? Il y a deux cafés, lequel veux-tu? All right, or then it's possible as well. In that case, it's more, let's say, spoken. Okay, the first one is the official one because in that case you put lequel, and after that you change the order. Remember, first the verb, then the subject, because that's the official and the formal way to ask a question. But then, if you speak normally, it's possible to, well, put the order a bit differently. So, il y a deux cafés. So this doesn't change, of course, okay? Tu veux lequel? All right, so you just keep the normal order. So you've got the subject here, you've got the verb here, and then you put lequel at the end, okay? Tu veux lequel? All right, meaning is the same, but then it's better to use this second form orally and the first form, if you've got to write, then use this first form, okay? So let's see another example. So, deux bus arrivent. Okay, so two buses arrive. Lequel prenez-vous? Remember, prendre is to take. Hein? Vous, you. Okay, so you could be the plural form, or then it could be the polite form for you. Okay, so lequel prenez-vous? Which one do you take? All right. Or then it could be as well as we saw in the previous example. You just keep the normal order, so subject, verb, vous prenez lequel. All right? And then another example. Voici les pâtisseries. Laquelle choisissez-vous? Okay, choisir, to choose. Voici les pâtisseries. Laquelle choisissez-vous? All right? Same thing here. Voici les pâtisseries. Vous choisissez laquelle? All right, so you can see that in that case it's the same. We just keep the normal order, so subject, verb, and then laquelle. All right, so now you've got lequel, and laquelle. Remember, phonetically, well, basically this second part, quel, doesn't change if you want to pronounce it, okay? So, les professions, so many words. I hope you're ready because it will be quite useful and maybe a bit long. Let's try to see that together. Okay, so we'll start right now. Un menuisier. Un électricien. Un plombier. Un maçon. Un agent immobilier. Un opticien. Okay, so let's see them one more time. Un menuisier. Remember this UI. UI. Menuisier. All right. Then, un électricien. So you can see that we make the liaison here. Un électricien. I-E-N, ien. Électricien. All right. Then, un plombier. Remember, O-M goes like O-N, so it's on. Plombier. All right. Un maçon. Here you can see that we've got this little cédille beneath the C, okay? And it just means that you will pronounce this C as S, okay? So that's the reason why. It's un maçon, son, okay? O-N in your nose, nasal, un maçon, all right? Then, liaison here, un agent immobilier. Same thing here, un opticien, okay? Next page. Un dentiste. Un docteur. Un jardinier. Un agent d'entretien. Un mécanicien. Un boucher. All right, so let's see them one more time. Un dentiste. Remember, nasal, dentiste. Un docteur. E-U-R, un docteur. Un jardinier. Remember, I-E-R-I-E, jardinier. Un agent d'entretien. Liaison here, un agent d'entretien. Un mécanicien. Remember, I-E-N, ien. Like here, ien. Un boucher. C-H, un boucher. So I tend to insist a little bit, but then it goes like un boucher. Okay? Next page. Un coiffeur. Un bijoutier. Un pharmacien. Un infirmier. Un vétérinaire. Un fermier. Okay, so let's see them now. Un coiffeur. Remember, O-I goes like wa, quoi, and then E-U-R, un coiffeur. Then we've got un bijoutier. Un pharmacien. So remember, P-H, so these combination of these two letters will produce the F sound. Pharmacien. Okay? Un pharmacien. Okay, then liaison here, un infirmier. Un infirmier. I-E-R at the end, ye. Infirmier. Okay, then un vétérinaire. Remember, accent aigu will give you this E sound. Vétéri, and then here it's open. R. Un vétérinaire. And then un fermier. Okay, let's see the next page. Un pêcheur. Un marin. Un policier. Un militaire. Un gardien. Un pompier. All right, so let's see them. Un pêcheur. So remember, when you've got this accent circumflex, you know that's the name of this accent. On the top of it will open the sound, so you get really open. Okay, so pêcheur, and then EUR, okay, un pêcheur. All right, then un marin, IN nasal, okay, un marin. All right, then un policier, IER, un policier. All right, then un militaire. Remember, AI, it's this E sound as well. E, militaire. All right, then un gardien. I-E-N here, ien, un gardien. All right, then un pompier. So remember what I told you, when you've got this O-M here, it will give you the sound on. So exactly the same sound as this O-N. All right, so in your nose, pompier. All right, next page now. Un avocat, un comptable, un architecte, un scientifique, un instituteur, un bibliothécaire. All right, so let's see them. Un avocat, so remember, liaison here and then final T not pronounced, okay? Un avocat. Un comptable, so OM, remember it goes like on, all right? And then, strangely, this P is not pronounced. Un comptable, all right? Then, un architecte, same thing here, liaison, okay? Un architecte, all right? And then CH, architecte, all right? Then, un scientifique, un instituteur, okay, so liaison here, and then remember this EU, it goes like heure with the R, instituteur. Then un bibliothécaire, bibliothé, remember in French the H doesn't exist, so you don't pronounce it. Bibliothécaire, un bibliothécaire. All right, so let's see the others. Un réceptionniste, un facteur, un conducteur, un camionneur, un chauffeur de taxi, un pilote. Okay, so let's see them. Un réceptionniste. Okay, remember when you get this T-I-O-N, so normally it will give you this S. I mean, I'm talking about the T here, okay? So, sioniste, okay? Réceptionniste, all right? Then, un facteur, E-U-R, heure, un facteur. Then, un conducteur, O-N, on, conducteur. Un camionneur, camionneur. Un chauffeur de taxi, okay? A-U-O, then E-U-R, heure, chauffeur, un chauffeur de taxi, un pilote. Okay, this one is quite easy. Un chef, un musicien, un danseur, un comédien, un chanteur, un serveur. Okay, so let's see them. Un chef, so remember, CH, it will give you the sh sound, un chef, okay? Then, un musicien, un danseur, remember, nasal here, A-N, en, un danseur. Un comédien, I-E-N, yen, comédien. E, accent aigu here, gives you the E sound. Comédien, all right? Then, un chanteur, un serveur, un barman, well, this one is not that difficult, un sculpteur, un sportif, un peintre, un photographe, un journaliste. All right, so un barman, un sculpteur. Same thing here. This P here is not pronounced. So sculpteur, un sculpteur. Un sportif, un peintre. So remember when you get this E-I-N together here, then you pronounce this un sound. So nasal in your nose, un peintre. All right, and remember, final here is not pronounced. It only gives you the possibility to pronounce these two letters. So tr, tr, okay, un peintre. All right, un photographe. So here PH and here PH, pronounce it like F, 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 f. Photographe. Okay, same thing here. This you don't insist on it. You only pronounce this f at the end. Un photographe, okay? Un journaliste, same thing here. You know, final only gives you the t. Journaliste, okay? Un barman, again. Oh no, un sculpteur. So I've been putting 2 times the same page. Well, let's repeat it. Un sportif, un peintre, un photographe, un journaliste. Okay, so let's see the last page. Un rédacteur, un dessinateur, un couturier. Okay, so un rédacteur. All right, remember accent aigu here, so you will have this E sound. Rédac, and then this okay? Un dessinateur, and then un couturier. Remember, OU goes like OU, okay? Couturier. I-E-R-I-E, okay? Un couturier. This lesson, I thought it might be useful for you to have some vocabulary regarding cuisiner. So cuisiner is to cook, just because French people like to talk about food. They like to talk about cooking and all these things. So it's usually quite useful to have few words or few verbs to be able to discuss about that, okay? And especially at this level, unité 7, I think it might be the time. So let's start now. Éplucher, battre, faire mijoter, pocher, griller. Okay, so let's see them one more time. Éplucher. Okay, remember when we've got this CH, the sound is sh. Okay, éplucher. All right. First group of verbs, okay, ending with er. So basically it is quite easy to conjugate. Okay, then battre, battre. Okay, even if you've got deux T here, 2 letters, well, basically you've got only the sound of one, okay? Battre, okay? Third group of verbs, a bit tricky to conjugate, but still, it's possible at your level. Then, faire mijoter, okay? Faire mijoter. Then, pocher, okay? First group. Griller, okay? It's interesting because here you've got this E and then double L, okay? In most of the cases, and I don't say always because it's not possible in French to say always. We've got so many exceptions, but in most of the cases, you will pronounce it y, okay? Griller, that's the reason why. Griller, okay? Remember, er, because these are verbs here. Griller, pocher, éplucher, okay? You pronounce them E, okay? Even if you get this R, okay? This combination of 2 letters, R at the end, will give you the sound E. All right? So, griller, okay? Let's see the others. Rôtir, cuire au four, bouillir, frire, couper. All right? So, rôtir. Don't forget this accent circonflexe, sorry. Then, cuire au four, bouillir. So that's maybe the tricky one of the list here. So, bou, and then yir, okay? Bouillir. So, bouillir, bouillir, okay? Frire, and then couper. Well, couper is quite easy. First group here, so je coupe, tu coupes, il coupe. Nous coupons, vous coupez, il coupe. So quite easy to conjugate. Couper en tranches. Râper. Étaler au rouleau. Remuer. Mélanger. Okay, so let's see them. So here you get this couper again, okay? En tranches. So tranche is a slice, okay? So in that case, couper en tranches. Râper, so don't forget this accent circonflexe here. First group of verb, easy to conjugate. Étaler au rouleau. Okay, étaler, so first group of verbs, quite easy to make. Then remuer. So this, maybe it's the difficult one of the list. Mu, okay? Remuer, remuer. And then mélanger. Okay, remember, G, E goes like J, okay? mélanger, mélanger. All right? Les plats d'un repas. So it will be a short lesson, but still, in the previous lesson we saw that all the verbs, well, the main verbs that we can use in French to discuss about cooking and how to prepare a dish. And now we'll see les plats d'un repas. Okay? So, un apéritif, une entrée, un plat principal, un fromage. Okay, so let's see that. Un apéritif. So here you get the liaison between the two. Un apéritif, okay, and then you get the accent aigu, so it goes like et. Un apéritif. Then une entrée. Une entrée. Okay, remember, well, technically this final here is not pronounced, so phonetically it doesn't exist, so it's et, okay? Entrée. Remember, nasal here, en, entrée. Une entrée. Then, un plat principal, final T here, not pronounced. Un plat principal. En, remember, it's nasal, it goes in your nose. Un, principal. Un plat principal. All right? Then, un fromage. Okay, remember, G-E-J. Okay, in that case, you don't insist on the final J. Fromage. Un fromage. All right? Then, une salade. Un dessert. Un café. All right, so, une salade. Same thing here. Final you don't insist on it. It only gives you the pronunciation of the previous letter. So, d. Salade. Salade. Okay? Une salade. Un dessert. Okay? So, remember that we've got here two S. Okay? That's the reason why you pronounce it S. And then it opens the dessert. Un dessert. So, you don't say un dessert. Okay? But you say un dessert. Final T not pronounced. Un dessert. All right? Un café. Okay, remember accent aigu here. Un café. Un café. Okay? Bonjour à tous and welcome to Learn French with Vincent, and this is Unité 7, leçon P. And in this lesson, we'll discover together le conditionnel passé. So, maybe some of you might think that it's a bit early to introduce this conditionnel passé form because normally it comes a bit later, but still I think that we've been introduced this conditionnel présent form in this unit, so it's still warm and I still have the feeling, and I have the feeling that normally it should be okay for avoir un être, so at the conditionnel présent. That's the reason why I think it might be useful to introduce this conditionnel passé form, especially because it's not that difficult if you master the conditionnel présent form and then the passé composé. I mean by that these participe passé forms, okay? So we'll see how it goes. And then the first thing that we'll see in this lesson is l'utilisation, okay, so when do we use this conditionnel passé form? And the second thing that we'll work on is la formation, so the way we make it or we build it. Okay, so let's start with the first one, so utilisation, okay? And then the first use that we will have for this conditionnel passé, it's to express regrets, exprimer les regrets, exprimer des regrets. Okay, so that's the first, well, one of the first use, let's say. The second one would be une information non confirmée. So if you're looking at the news, for instance, and then they want to talk about something that happened, but then they don't have all the elements to confirm this information. So normally in that case, they just use this conditionnel passé form, okay? And then something, I mean the last one would be imaginer des situations irréelles dans le passé. So you want to imagine some situations that, well, technically are not real and they take place in the past. So that's the use of le conditionnel passé. Okay, so first one, exprimer des regrets here. Second use, information non confirmée. And then the last one, imaginez des situations irréelles dans le passé. Okay? And now let's see how we make this conditionnel passé. All right? So, first example I wanted to put is je mangerai au restaurant. Okay? So this sentence, if you remember, we saw that in well, these units anyway, when we introduced this conditionnel présent form, okay? So you've got the verb is manger, je mangerai au restaurant. And then, if you look at the conditionnel passé, well, it will go like j'aurais mangé au restaurant. Okay? Second example, tu regarderais la télévision. Tu aurais regardé la télévision. Okay? So same thing here. The first one is at the conditionnel présent form. Second one, conditionnel passé form. And then, il irait au travail would become il serait allé au travail. All right. So if you look carefully, then what you can see? I mean, you can see first that it is composed. So you've got two parts. The first one here is avoir. Then you've got what we called and what we saw previously for the passé composé form. This is participe passé, okay, past participle. Here the same way, have a look. It's avoir and then it's the past participle, regardez. And here we've got être and here we've got the past participle. So maybe if you want to construct this conditionnel passé form, you will have first to use avoir, like we saw, but then avoir should be at the conditionnel présent form. Okay? Then you will put after this participe passé form that we saw previously when we introduced the passé composé, because that's the second part that we use for the passé composé as well. Alright, so first, avoir at the conditionnel présent form plus participe passé, past participle, then you will get your conditionnel passé form. Okay? But we saw as well that in some cases we'll use être, but then same thing, it should be at the conditionnel présent form. Whoops! Plus participe passé, so it doesn't change, and it will give you conditionnel passé. Okay, so you've got to remember that in most of the cases, you will use avoir. Okay, so if you're not sure, if you've got a doubt, then put avoir. Okay, if you know that it should be constructed with être, then put être, of course. Okay, in both cases, remember that they should be at the conditionnel présent form. All right, so we'll see. So the verbs that will require être will be the following: aller, to go; arriver, to arrive; descendre, to go down; devenir, to become; entrer, to enter, to come in, to go in; monter, to go up; mourir, to die; naître, born; partir, to leave; rester, to stay; retourner, to return; sortir, to go out; tomber, to fall; venir, to come. Okay, so all these verbs will require être for this conditionnel passé form. And then if you remember what we've been seeing for the passé composé, well, there are exactly the same verbs that will require être, whether for the passé composé or then for the conditionnel passé. And the good news is that we've got other composed tenses in French, and this list will be always the same. So it means that this list of verbs that will require être will be the same for all these composed tenses. Okay? So remember, one more time, aller, arriver, descendre, devenir, entrer, monter, mourir, naître, partir, rester, retourner, sortir, tomber, venir. Okay, so remember, you will have to use être with these verbs. Okay, so as I said, être, but then for the conditionnel passé, être should be conjugated at the conditionnel présent. All right, so let's see that. But then the other group of verbs that will require all the time être will be what we call les verbes réfléchis, so reflexive verbs, okay? And they usually goes like se regarder, okay? Se regarder, s'appeler, se présenter. So they will use être for this conditionnel passé form, but then, well, I mean, they are exactly the same verbs, you know, as we saw for this passé composé, so it is always the same rule. Okay, so se regarder, s'appeler, se présenter. So all the reflexive verbs will require être at the conditionnel passé. Okay, so let's see now how avoir and être, how they go at the conditionnel présent, because that's the first part that you will have to put. So it's j'aurais, tu aurais, il aurait, elle aurait, nous aurions, vous auriez, ils auraient, elles auraient. Okay, so that's what you will use in most of the cases. Okay, so let's see that. Let's see it one more time. J'aurais, remember, final S not pronounced. Tu aurais, same thing here, final S not pronounced. Il aurait, elle aurait, final T not pronounced. Nous aurions, liaison here, this little link. Nous aurions, final S not pronounced. Vous auriez, liaison here, and then EZ will go like E. Vous auriez, okay, and the last one. Ils auraient, so liaison here. Elles auraient. And then look, if you've got A-I-E-N-T, then phonetically it goes like aurait. Okay, so phonetically you've got aurait here, aurait, aurait, and here as well, aurait. Okay, so it's quite easy to produce orally. And then être, je serais, tu serais, il serait, elle serait, nous serions, vous seriez, il serait, elle serait. Okay, so we'll see that one more time. Je serais, same thing here, final S not pronounced. Tu serais, final S not pronounced. Il serait, final T not pronounced. Elle serait. Nous serions, final S not pronounced. Vous seriez. So here when you've got this Z at the end, then you get the sound E. Seriez. So vous seriez, okay? And the last one. Il serait, A-I-E-N-T here, phonetically it goes like E, okay? Serait, elle serait. So same thing here, we've got serait here, phonetically I mean. Serait, serait, and serait. So the same sound. Okay? And then for the second part that we use, so what we call le participe passé. So the thing is that for the first group of verbs, so normally the first group of verbs, we talk about the verbs ending at the infinitive form with er. Okay? So these verbs are quite easy because if you've got, well, have a look at the first example that I put, and it's parler, parler to speak, to talk. So you can see that it ends with er here. It's here, okay? So this is the infinitive form, so the basic form of the verb, okay? And then the participe passé, so this past participle, will be like that, accent aigu. So parler, all right? Then the verb regarder, er here, will follow the same rule. Regarder, like that, with the accent aigu. And here, when we talk about the first group of verbs, we are really talking about a lot of verbs, okay? So many verbs will follow this simple rule, okay? So the second part that you will use for this conditionnel passé will be written like that if the verb is belonging to the first group of verb. Even the verb aller. Aller, to go, remember, it's a tricky verb normally when you conjugate it, especially at the present form. But for this past participle form, it is quite easy because it goes like A, L, L, E, accent aigu. So it does follow the same rule. This ER become E, like that. Okay? Second group of verb, so regular verbs, not all the ER verbs, okay? Quite easy as well. Let's take choisir. Choisir is to choose, okay? ER like that, and it will become E. Finir, to finish or to end, ER, and it will become E. Unir, to unite, ER, and it will become E. So it's quite easy, okay? Choisir, choisi, finir, fini, unir, uni. So of course, we've got exceptions because we're talking about the third group of verbs, and then this one is, well, it's tricky. I mean, we've got to be honest with that. The first advice I would give you is to try to remember them by heart, okay? And I've been making a video about these tricky participe passé, okay? But then here we can have a look at them. So subgroups here, talking about the one ending with U, okay? So for example, connaître, to know, will become connu, okay? Voir, to see, will become vu, okay? Ending with I, partir, will become parti. Partir is to leave. Rire, to laugh, will become ri, okay? The one ending with ite, like here, écrire, to write, écrit. Dire, to say, dire. Dit. Getting tired. And then es, mettre, will become mis. Mettre means to put. Prendre, to take, will become pris. Okay? So here you've got the past participle, so les participes passés of these verbs here, okay? So we'll take one example. The example will be parler. Parler is to talk or to speak, okay? So we will have at the conditionnel passé form, if you remember. So first part here is avoir at the conditionnel présent. Then here we've got the participe passé of parler, and it will give you j'aurais parlé, tu aurais parlé, il aurait parlé, elle aurait parlé, nous aurions parlé, vous auriez parlé, ils auraient parlé, elles auraient parlé. Okay, so I wanted to put this A like that in another color just to tell you that if you've got a normal structure like that, so you've got the subject and then you've got the verb, okay, nothing in between, so subject, verb, then if you use avoir, exactly the same rule as we saw for the passé composé, so if you use avoir here, you won't have to modify your participe passé. So it will change, it won't change, sorry, it will stay like a accent aigu, okay? Even if it's the singular, the plural, or then the feminine. Okay, it doesn't change, so it will stay like parler. Alright? But if you use être, like here, il serait allé, okay? So remember, aller was belonging to this group of verbs that require être, okay, to construct this conditionnel passé, all right? Il serait allé. So in that case, you can see that at the end, it's allé like that without anything after. But then, if we look at the feminine form, elle serait allée, you will have to add this e at the end, okay? Remember, in most of the cases, when you have to add something, it's the mark of the feminine. Okay, so elle serait allée, okay? But then phonetically it doesn't exist, all right? So it's aller here, and then aller here, the way you pronounce it. But if you want to write correctly, you should put it. And then the same thing for the plural. We will have to put the plural, and then the mark of the plural, the thing that we've got to add at the end, will be S. The good news, as well, you don't pronounce it as usual in French. You write it, you don't pronounce it. Okay, so it doesn't change. It's aller here, aller, and then aller. Okay, phonetically the same thing, but remember, it's just a question of, well, being correct if you want to write it. Okay, and then logically, feminine plural, then you should add a mark of the feminine, as we had previously, and S mark of the plural. And guess what? You don't pronounce it. Okay, so phonetically it's aller, 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 and aller. All right, but you need to write them. Okay, so let's see now the full thing. So, je serais allé, okay, and then if you want to make the liaison, it would be more beautiful. Je serais allé. Tu serais allé. Il serait allé. Elle serait allée. Nous serions allés. Vous seriez allé. Il serait allé. Elle serait allée. All right, so that's it. And then one example with these reflexive verbs that we saw, and then, well, I just wanted to use this se présenter. Okay, so je me serais présenté. Tu te serais présenté. Il se serait présenté. Elle se serait présentée. Nous nous serions présentés. Vous vous seriez présenté. Il se serait présenté. Elle se serait présentée. All right, so if it's not really clear yet for these reflexive verbs, I mean the way you should conjugate them, I definitely advise you to check the lesson regarding these reflexive verbs, because I've been making one video regarding that, so it would be easier for you to understand the way we construct it, especially in that case, why we put this je, me, tu, te, etc. Okay? All right, so remember, the last thing that you should remember before ending this lesson is that when you construct this conditionnel passé, so in most of the cases you will have to use avoir at the conditionnel présent form, then the participe passé, and it will give you conditionnel passé. Okay? In some exceptions, so we saw the list of verbs, you should really try to remember them by heart. I know it's not easy, but you know, try your best. And then the reflexive verbs, okay? So for these exceptions, we will use être at the conditionnel présent form, then the participe passé, and it will give you this conditionnel passé form. Okay, I hope it was clear. youtube.com/imagier, that's the place where you can find all the videos, and then the website is here, imagier.net. Have a great day, bye bye. Beauté et hygiène. So let's start now. La beauté. Une brosse. Un démaquillant. Un peigne. Un poudrier. Okay, so let's see them one more time. La beauté. Remember, we've got this combination of a, u here, of the vowels, okay? But then it will give you the sound o, beauté, okay? La beauté. All right, then une brosse. Remember, don't insist on this final brosse. Un démaquillant. So we've got this QU, but then U is not pronounced. So you get the sound qui. Okay, and then remember, double L after E will give you the sound y. Démaquillant. Final T not pronounced. Démaquillant. Okay, and this is nasal in your nose. En démaquillant. Then un peigne. Final E, you don't insist on it. It's ny, the last sound. And then this E combination will give you this E. Open un peigne. All right? Un poudrier. Okay, remember, O-U, ou, pou, poudrier. All right? Un bigoudi. Un fer à friser. Un gant de toilette. Un gel. Un sèche-cheveux. Okay, so let's see them. Un bigoudi. It's quite funny to pronounce, isn't it? Bigoudi, okay, but not difficult. Un fer à friser. Un gant de toilette. Remember, G-A goes like ga, okay? G-g-g. But in that case, you've got this A-N, so it's nasal, gant, and then final T is not pronounced here. Un gant, gant de toilette. Un gel. Un sèche. So this one is a bit tricky. So remember, we've got this E accent grave here. So it's really open. Sèche. Okay, sèche. And then cheveux. Usually this one is a bit of a problem because some of the students normally pronounce it chevaux. Okay, so try to keep in mind that you get E-U here. So it goes like okay, and then final X not pronounced, sorry, final X, should pronounce it the French way, final X is not pronounced, so you get che, and then you get veux, okay, cheveux, okay, and the full thing, un sèche-cheveux, all right, une laque, une hygiène, un crayon à lèvres, un rouge à lèvres, un maquillage. All right, so let's see them. Une laque. Remember the rule when you get this Q-U, well, U is not pronounced, so you get K, like that. Une laque. Une hygiène. So remember we've got this Y here, vowel, and it's pronounced like E. E, okay? Hygiène. H doesn't exist, H doesn't exist in French, so hygiène. Un crayon à lèvres. Final S not pronounced. Lèvres. Okay? And then when you get this Y between two vowels, then you will have this cré. So like if you would have I here, A-I, cré, and then another E here, ion. Crayon. Un crayon à lèvres. Un rouge à lèvres. Same thing here, final S not pronounced, and then this E accent grave here, it gives you the E, really open sound. Lèvres. All right? Un maquillage. Okay, so here, same rule, Q-U, but then U is not pronounced, so qui, and then y. Maquillage. Une crème hydratante. Un coupe-ongles. Un vernis à ongles. Un parfum. Un shampoing. Okay, so let's cover them together. Une crème hydratante. So remember, H is not existing, and then this Y is pronounced like I. Hydratante. Okay, don't insist on the final E, and this is nasal. Hydratante. Un coupe-ongles. Okay, O-N, remember, nasal, ongle. Un coupe-ongles. Un vernis à ongles. Final S here not pronounced. Same thing here. Vernis à ongles. Un parfum. So remember, even if you've got this UM like that, phonetically it's exactly the same thing as if you would have UN. So it's nasal and it's un. So it really goes in your nose. You don't pronounce the M at all. Un. Okay? So par, fin, parfum. Okay? Un parfum. And then un shampoing. Okay, this is a strange one, really. try to listen to me and repeat. So maybe you shouldn't visualize the word, but still it goes like shampoing. Okay, shampoing. One more time, shampoing. Okay, the full thing, shampoing. Okay. Bonjour à tous and welcome to Learn French with Vincent. This is Unité 7, leçon R. And I've been thinking that I could make maybe 2 videos, so it would be the first one regarding the verbs, okay? So just to give you quite many verbs, because at this level, at this stage, normally you should definitely try to learn as much or as many verbs as possible, and then vocabulary is the same, okay? So we'll start right now. Avoir, posséder. Okay, so for each verb, okay, I will first put the direct translation of the verb and then maybe, you know, 1 or 2 other verbs, okay? So it's really important to just keep in mind that the first one is the direct translation, okay? So the first one that you should use in almost all the contexts, okay? But in some cases, it's possible to use the other options depending on the context or the situation, okay? But then, so, avoir, posséder. Être, aller, s'en aller. Obtenir, recevoir, avoir. Pouvoir. Okay, one more time. Avoir, posséder, être, aller, s'en aller, obtenir, recevoir, avoir, pouvoir. Voir, regarder, venir, faire, fabriquer, savoir, connaître, prendre, saisir. So let's repeat them one more time. Voir, regarder, venir, faire, fabriquer, savoir, connaître. So for these 2 verbs, I've been making one video, okay, that you can find if you use the search engine in YouTube, okay, because, well, really they mean exactly the same thing, okay, but it's just a construction that you will have to modify if you use savoir and then connaître, okay. Prendre, saisir. Penser, réfléchir. Mettre, placer. Vouloir, avoir envie de, désirer. Dire, raconter. Dire, déclarer. Ok? Penser, réfléchir, mettre, placer, vouloir, avoir envie de, désirer, dire, raconter, dire, déclarer, donner, offrir. Aimer bien, aimer, apprécier, regarder, travailler, écrire, donner, offrir. Aimer bien, aimer, apprécier, regarder, travailler, écrire, trouver, retrouver, jouer, falloir, devoir, utiliser, courir, se précipiter, trouver, retrouver, jouer, falloir, devoir, utiliser, courir, se précipiter, apporter, amener, montrer, exposer, présenter, garder, retenir, conserver, aider, assister, épauler, placer, poster, mettre, apporter, amener, montrer, exposer, présenter, garder, retenir, conserver, aider, assister, épauler, placer, poster, mettre. So that's it for the first part of the verbs. Okay, so the next lesson will be exactly the same thing. I mean the same thing, no, but the same concepts, but other verbs. Okay, so the video can be found here. Okay, and then all the others as well, and the website is here. Okay, have a great day. Bye bye. Les verbes. Okay, so it will be the second part of the list of the verbs that I wanted to give you before the end of this unité set. Okay, and so let's start. Essayer, tenter. Okay, so just to repeat, if you didn't check that, well, if you didn't see the first video, so I will put each time the first verb here. It would be the direct translation of this verb. Okay, so it will apply, well, it will be the same meaning in almost all the contexts. Okay, and then the second or third or maybe fourth option, it will be a translation that would be possible in some situations. Okay, but not all. Okay, but still, essayer, tenter. Demander, interroger. Lire, appeler, partir, essayer, tenter, demander, interroger, lire, appeler, partir. Entendre, ouïr. Démarrer, commencer, entamer. Espérer, souhaiter. Tourner, retourner. Avoir besoin de, nécessiter. Entendre, ouïr. Démarrer, commencer, entamer. Espérer, souhaiter, tourner, retourner, avoir besoin de, nécessiter. Se sentir, croire que, ouvrir, arrêter, cesser, payer, régler, acheter. Se sentir, croire que, ouvrir, arrêter, cesser, payer, régler, acheter. Porter, transporter, marcher, se promener, rester, séjourner, envoyer, expédier, rencontrer, retrouver, se réunir. Porter, transporter, marcher, se promener, rester, séjourner, envoyer, expédier, rencontrer, retrouver, se réunir. Croire, souhaiter, désirer, couper, tailler, se souvenir, se rappeler, tomber. Croire, souhaiter, désirer, couper, tailler, se souvenir, se rappeler, tomber. Manger, se restaurer, aimer, adorer, patienter, attendre, fermer, finir, terminer. Manger, se restaurer, aimer, adorer, patienter, attendre, fermer, finir, terminer. Au café, so quite useful. Un serveur, une table, une terrasse de café, un crème, un noir, un expresso. Okay, so one more time. Un serveur, une table, une terrasse de café, un crème, remember, accent grave, un crème, un noir, un expresso. Okay, remember we've got this X here. Expresso. Okay? Un cappuccino, un chocolat chaud, un café glacé, un thé vert, un thé blanc. All right? So, un cappuccino, not really difficult to produce. Un chocolat chaud, remember CH, chaud, chocolat, and then final T not pronounced, chaud, final D not pronounced. Un café glacé, un thé, remember H is not pronounced. Un thé vert, final T not pronounced. Un thé vert, un thé blanc, final C not pronounced. Un thé blanc, ok? Un thé nature, une tisane, une camomille, un thé au lait, un thé au citron, un thé glacé. Un thé nature, une tisane, une camomille. So remember when we get this E and then double L, it goes like y. Mille, camomille, une camomille, un thé au lait, final T not pronounced, un thé au citron, un thé glacé, un jus d'orange, un jus de pomme, un jus de tomate. All right? Un jus d'orange, un jus de pomme. In most of the cases, French people will pronounce it like un jus de pomme. Jus de pomme. All right? And then same thing here, un jus de tomate. Okay, so you don't insist on the de. Jus de tomate. I know it's quite difficult to produce, but still trying. So, un jus d'orange, here it's not difficult. Un jus de pomme, un jus de tomate. Okay? Au restaurant. Okay, so let's start now. Une table, un verre, une assiette plate, une assiette creuse. Okay, so let's see them one more time. Une table, un verre, une assiette plate, Une assiette creuse. Une assiette à dessert. Une serviette. Une fourchette. Un couteau. Une cuillère. So let's repeat them. Une assiette à dessert. Une serviette. Une fourchette. Un couteau. Une cuillère. Une cuillère à soupe. Un garçon. Un menu. Une carte des vins. À la carte. Une cuillère à soupe. Un garçon. Remember when we get this cédille beneath the C, it will give you the pronunciation S of C. So instead of K, as it should be with O. Okay? So, un garçon, un menu, une carte des vins, à la carte. Une addition, un reçu, un pourboire. Une addition, un reçu, un pourboire. Le poisson, so it will be a vocabulary lesson. Okay, so let's start now. Le thon. La dorade. La morue. Le saumon. Le bar. Let's repeat them. Le thon. Remember, H here is not pronounced. Le thon. La dorade. La morue. Final E not pronounced. Le saumon. O-N, remember, nasal in your nose. Saumon. Le bar. Le merlan. La raie. La sardine. L'aigle fin. La limande sole. Okay, so le merlan, la raie, final E not pronounced. La sardine, you don't insist on the final E, it only gives you the N pronunciation. Sardine. L'aigle fin, la limande sole. La sole. L'espadon. La truite, le maquereau, la lotte, la sole, same thing, don't insist on the final E, okay, it only gives you the L sound, sol, l'espadon, O-N in your nose, nasal, on, espadon, la truite, same thing here, final E not pronounced, t, la truite, le maquereau. So technically this k, just pronounce it k, mac, macro, macro. Alright? And then u, remember when you combine these three vowels, you get the sound o, macro. Okay? And then la lotte, final not pronounced, lot, t, lot. Okay? La lotte. Alright? Les céréales. L'avoine, le blé, le maïs, le millet. So let's repeat them. L'avoine, remember, don't insist on the final E. L'avoine, le blé, here, accent aigu, et le maïs. So here you get this tréma, so maïs, maïs. And then you pronounce the final S, maïs. Le millet, here, I, and then double L, so I, millet. A T at the end, open, millet. L'orge, le quinoa, le son. Let's repeat. L'orge, le quinoa, le son. L'imparfait, so we saw previously le passé composé, so this past tense that we use quite often, and this is the second one, so l'imparfait. And in this video, we'll see together the first part, l'utilisation, so when do we use l'imparfait, okay, and then the second part will be la formation, so how do we build, how do we construct this imparfait form, okay, so, but then let's focus now on l'utilisation, so when do we use l'imparfait, and then the first situation when we will use l'imparfait will be if you want to describe something in the past, une description dans le passé. Okay, so if you want to describe something in the past, like in this example here, la pièce, the room, était, so that's the verb here. The verb is to be, okay, and it's the imperfect form, était, grande, big, et sombre, dark. Okay, so in that case, you want to describe the room, then you should use l'imparfait. Second situation, une habitude dans le passé. So a habit, something that you are used to do in the past, okay, and the example is je partais, partir is to leave, okay, and it's the imparfait form here, le matin, the morning, à 8 heures. Okay, so in that case you want to say that it's an habit, something that you do in the past, then you should use l'imparfait, okay. Other situation when you will need to use l'imparfait, une répétition dans le passé. Okay, so répétition, you understand, something that repeats itself, dans le passé, the example here, nous allions tous les soirs au restaurant. Okay, so aller is to go, tous les soirs, okay, so every evening, au restaurant. All right, so something that you do and that repeats itself in the past. And then, if you want to say something that lasts, durer is to last, in the past, dans le passé, then, in that case, this sentence is quite interesting because I wanted to make the difference between the use of the imparfait here, okay, and then here you've got the passé composé form, all right? So, je regardais la télé, so la télévision. All right, so in that case, you tend to use, of course, l'imparfait because it lasts a while when you watch TV, so if it's a movie or something like that. When tu as appelé, okay, so appeler is to call on the phone, for instance, okay. So in that case, you want to make the difference between something that happens and it's an action, so tu as appelé, okay, and then here you use l'imparfait, well, because it lasts longer. Okay, so je regardais la télé quand tu as appelé. All right, and then we've got another structure. So if you want to insist on the fact that something lasts and then something continues, then we've got this structure. Être, so it's to be, être en train de, okay, and then you will put l'infinitive form after that, so the basic form. All right, so an example here as well. So I wanted to make the difference as well with, you know, between the passé composé form here. Je n'ai pas répondu. Répondre is to answer, okay. Car, because, j'étais en train de faire mes devoirs, okay. So faire mes devoirs, to do my homework. Okay, and then in that case you use this structure j'étais en train de because you want to say that, well, it lasts, okay, it's quite long, it's not something that will take 1 minute or 2 minutes, but it's longer than that. Okay, so that's the reason why we use this j'étais en train de faire, so était en train de, as we saw here. Okay, so you will have to use this verb être, okay, but then at the imparfait form, of course. Okay, so, and then one thing that you should keep in mind is that être, so to be, croire, to believe, penser, to think, savoir, to know, are often, and it's quite important, souvent, often, so it's not always, okay, because it's not possible to say always, especially if you're talking about French grammar, okay, but often you use them at l'imparfait form, okay. Now let's see how to construct this imparfait, okay. So I've been taking some verbs from the first group and then the second and the third group. Okay, if you remember, we've got 3 groups of verbs in French. So the first one, regarder, so is to watch. Okay, and then I've been putting this nous form at the present for a good reason. You will see why a bit later. So you should know the present form of regarder, and it goes like nous regardons, so that's the present form, nous regardons. Okay. For the second group, I've been taking finir, finir to finish, to end. Okay, same thing. You will put this nous form at the present. Nous finissons. Okay. And then for the third group of verbs, I took prendre. Prendre is to take. Okay, and it goes like nous prenons. Alright, so nous regardons, nous finissons, nous prenons. So the reason why I wanted you to see the nous form is just because that's the form we will use to construct the imparfait. Okay, so the thing will be to take away the ending of nous. And the ending of nous, it's ons. Like you saw here, here, and here. So the idea is that this ending, you will take it away. Okay? Then, that's the thing we will keep. Regarde, like that, without the ending for nous. Finisse, without the ending for nous. And then prenne, without the ending. Okay? And, after that, you will add the endings for l'imparfait. And they will be like for je, AIS, for tu, AIS, for il or elle, AIT, for nous, IONS, for vous, IEZ, and for il, elle at the plural, AIENT. Alright, so now if you, or if we talk about the pronunciation, the good thing is that this will be pronounced e, this will be pronounced e, obviously because you write it the same way. This will be pronounced e as well. So final S and final T are not pronounced, and this is pronounced the same way. And the good news is that this form, A-I-E-N-T, is pronounced E as well. Okay, so we've got E here, E, and then E. Okay, so that's quite easy to produce. I mean, it's not normally, it's not a big difficulty for the students to make this E sound. Okay, and then for nous, it will be, so if you remember correctly, so final S is not pronounced here. Okay, and then this O-N, so it's a nasal and it goes in your nose and it goes like on. Alright, so you don't hear any N, so it's really on. Okay, when you add this I before, okay, you will get the y sound. So you get yon. Yon, that's the full form, okay? Yon. And then ye here. Okay, so yon, ye, Alright? So now, je regarde. And then so that's the full form that you will have. And then you will pronounce it, je regardais. Alright? So if we have the example for finir, it was finisse. Remember this form that we got from the nous form of the present. Okay, so finisse, and then you add et. Je finissais. Alright? And then the last verb we had was prendre, if I remember correctly, yes? And it was prenne, okay? The form that we got when we took away this ONS ending from the present. Okay, so prenne, and then you add your ending, et. Je prenais. Okay, so let's see how it goes for all the forms. So je regardait, so it's regarder, to watch. Tu regardais, il regardait, elle regardait. Nous regardions, vous regardiez, il regardait, elle regardait. Okay, so remember, regardait, 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 and then as well, regardait. And after that you've got this ion, as I said, regardions, and then ier, regardiez. Alright, let's see finir now. Je finissais, tu finissais, il finissait, elle finissait, nous finissions, vous finissiez, il finissait, elle finissait. Okay, so same thing here. Have a look. Finissait, 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 same form. And then finissait here, same form. I mean phonetically, okay? And then ion, finissions, and then finissiez. All right? And the last verb we had with to take, prendre. Je prenais, tu prenais, il prenait, elle prenait, nous prenions, vous preniez, il prenait, elle prenait. Okay? So remember that in that case you will have to really pronounce the like a prenait. All right? So same thing here, final S not pronounced. Je prenais, tu prenais, il prenait, final T not pronounced, so the same form, okay? And then plural, as I said, prenait as well, okay? And here, prenions, preniez. Okay? And then of course, avoir and être can be in some cases quite tricky. So that's the reason why we'll take a few minutes to watch or to have a look at them. The first one, avoir, and well, it's not that tricky at all because it goes like that. J'avais, tu avais, il avait, elle avait, nous avions, vous aviez, ils avaient, elles avaient. So it is quite easy. Honestly, it is quite easy. Just try to remember, especially if you want to use it only orally, then it's quite easy because it's avait, and avait, remember, okay? So, j'avais, final S not pronounced. Tu avais. Il avait, final T not pronounced. Nous avions, let's make this beautiful liaison here. Nous avions, okay? Vous aviez, same thing here, a little liaison. Ils avaient. Elles avaient, okay? And then let's have a look at être. J'étais, tu étais, il était, elle était, nous étions, vous étiez, ils étaient, elles étaient. Okay? Same thing, not that difficult at all, and especially if you want to pronounce it, it's not really difficult. J'étais, okay? Remember, here we've got accent aigu, so it goes like et, alright? J'étais. Okay, tu étais, il était, elle était, nous étions, little liaison here to make it more beautiful, nous étions, okay, final S not pronounced, remember, vous étiez, same thing here, little liaison, and then ils étaient, liaison as well, elles étaient. Bonjour à tous, and welcome to Learn French with Vincent. This is Unité 8, leçon F. And in this lesson, we'll work together on le passé composé et l'imparfait. So, I just introduced this imparfait form in the previous lesson, and we saw the passé composé, well, a long time ago in a way, though still, the thing is that normally with students, when they've got these two forms, so after having introduced this imparfait form, it's usually quite tricky and difficult to know exactly when to use le passé composé and l'imparfait. Okay, so that's the reason why I thought it might be useful to just spend a few minutes with this video and just try to work a little bit on that and see if things and uses are okay with you. Okay, so let's start now. So in this video, first I will focus on l'imparfait, so when should we use l'imparfait, and then after that le passé composé. Okay, so the first thing that will refresh will be l'imparfait, okay? So l'imparfait, remember that you will use it when you want to describe something in the past, okay? So the example I took, la pièce était grande et sombre, okay? La pièce, the room, grande, big, sombre, dark, okay? So in that case, you use être, to be, All right, and then you use it at the imparfait form to make this description. Okay, the second use will be something that you have. So une habitude, it's an habit or something that you are used to do. Okay, so une habitude dans le passé. So the example, je partais le matin à 8 heures. Okay, so in that case, you want to insist on the fact that it's something that you tend to do every morning. Maybe je partais le matin à 8 heures. Okay, so not so far from this habit concept is something that will repeat or that did repeat itself in the past. Okay, une répétition dans le passé. So if you want to express or to, well, say something that repeats itself in the past, then in that case, you should use l'imparfait. The example, nous allions, okay, so aller, to go, tous les soirs, okay, so every evening, au restaurant, okay, so in that case, you should definitely use the imparfait form, okay, nous allions tous les soirs au restaurant. All right. Another use would be une situation qui dure dans le passé. Durer is to last, okay? So in that case, I did write this sentence with the two forms. So here you've got the imparfait form, and here you've got the passé composé form. Okay, and then we tend to use both here just to make, well, clearly the difference of use of them. So the first one, je regardais, regarder is to watch, la télé. Okay, so je regardais la télé quand, when, tu as appelé. Appeler is to call, okay, on the phone. Quand tu as appelé, all right? So we want here, with this sentence, here to use the imparfait form because it lasts in the past, okay? So when you watch TV, maybe it won't last 1 minute or two, but a bit longer than that, okay? And then tu as appelé, well, it's an action, something that doesn't take too long if you compare it to the previous verb here. Je regardais la télé, okay? So that's the reason why here, je regardais la télé will be used at the imparfait form because it lasts longer than the other one, okay? Tu as appelé. All right, and then another structure that we can use as well if we want to insist on the fact that something lasts and something continue, okay? Pour insister sur la durée et continuité, then the structure is être en train de, and then you put your verb at the infinitive form here. So infinitive form is the basic form of the verb, okay? So être, so that's the verb être that you should conjugate at the imparfait form, okay? And then same thing here. I wanted to make the difference between the two. So here you've got this passé composé. Je n'ai pas répondu. So répondre, to answer. Okay, maybe someone was calling on the phone. Je n'ai pas répondu. Okay, car, because j'étais en train de faire mes devoirs. Faire mes devoirs, to do my homework. Okay, so j'étais en train de faire mes devoirs. So in that case, you use this structure. So être en train de, because you want to insist on the fact that, well, it takes a while to make them. Okay, j'étais en train de faire mes devoirs. All right. Now, le passé composé. So, le passé composé, well, the first use, of course, of le passé composé, it's une action, an action qui s'est passée, that took place avant le moment présent. So, before the present moment, the example that we could have here, je suis en retard parce que j'ai marché trop lentement. Okay? And here, well, the first part here, je suis en retard, I am late. It's the present, okay? And then you want to, well, give the reason why. Parce que, because, j'ai marché, so marcher is to walk, okay? And this is the imparfait form, okay? Trop lentement, too slowly, okay? Je suis en retard parce que j'ai marché trop lentement. Then, une action dans le passé qui a des limites temporelles. Okay, so it's an action that took place in the past, all right, but then you've got some clear limits when it started or when it ended. Okay, and then the example here, dimanche dernier, j'ai dormi toute la journée. Dormir is to sleep, okay, so this is here the passé composé form, toute la journée, all day long. Okay, so you've got clearly a limit, toute la journée. you know exactly when it stopped. All right? Une action qui est terminée. Okay? So clearly here, if you want to introduce your birth date, then je suis né. Okay, so it was an action in a way, okay, but still it's finished. So, le 16 juin 1970, okay, je suis né, so that's the reason why here you will use this verb naître, okay, je suis né le 16 juin 1970. Une histoire composée de plusieurs actions, okay, so if you've got several actions, okay, in a story, then normally you should use le passé composé. For instance, hier, yesterday, je suis rentré, I came back home, okay, rentré, je suis rentré, j'ai préparé à manger, etc., etc., okay, so orally you will explain to a friend or to a colleague what you've been doing yesterday, okay, you want to introduce these actions, okay, and in that case, that's the tense that you will use, the passé composé, all right? If you want to speak about an event of the past with, for instance, hier, yesterday, le mois dernier, last month, ce matin, this morning, cet après-midi, this afternoon, dimanche midi, so dimanche is Sunday, okay, midi, noon, jeudi, Thursday, matin, morning, okay, so with these structures, and if you're talking about an event, an action, okay, in that case you definitely should use le passé composé. Okay, so of course these are examples. Okay, we've got so many others that I didn't have the, well, I didn't want to put everything in this page. All right, so if you want to use, and this is quite important, negative form, okay, connected to the present form or the present. For instance, if you want to say that, so je n'ai jamais fait de patinage. Patinage is skate, ice skating. Okay, you want to say that you never did ice skating. In that case, well, you should use the passé composé form. Okay, je n'ai jamais fait de patinage. Oops, I should put something instead. It's not a virgule, it's point. It should be point. Sorry, it was a little mistake here. Okay, but still, je n'ai jamais fait de patinage. Okay, same example here. Il n'a jamais eu de chance. Okay, avoir de la chance, to have luck. Okay, il n'a jamais, never eu de chance. So in that case, you should put that at the passé composé form. Okay, and then, well, same thing. Nous n'avons pas eu de chance. All right, in that case, it's with pas and not never, but it's clearly the same meaning. Nous n'avons pas eu de chance, and in that case, you should definitely use here the passé composé form. Okay. So, of course, avoir and être can be quite tricky, so that's the reason why we'll take a few minutes to see them, and we'll start with avoir, okay? This is the imparfait form. J'avais, tu avais, il avait, elle avait, nous avions, vous aviez, ils avaient, elles avaient. And next to it, we'll put the passé composé form. J'ai eu, tu as eu, il a lu, elle a eu, nous avons eu, vous avez eu, ils ont eu, elles ont eu. Okay, so let's take 1 minute to see them one more time. J'avais, final S not pronounced. Tu avais, same thing. Il avait, final T not pronounced. Elle avait. Nous avions, little liaison, final S not pronounced. Nous avions. Vous aviez, same thing here, little liaison between the two. Ils avaient, so remember, even if we've got this A-I-E-N-T, well, we don't pronounce it, or we don't pronounce this E-N-T, so we get avait, okay, phonetically. Ils avaient, okay, and then elles avaient. And now for the passé composé form, so if you remember clearly, we use the verb avoir at the present form, then we put this participe passé form, so it does mean that it will be the same all the time. That's the reason why we see it here, okay? And this is pronounced, so it's an exception because normally you should pronounce it differently, but, so it's an exception, it is pronounced U, okay? U, that's the way you should pronounce it. So, j'ai eu. Tu as eu, il a eu, elle a eu, nous avons eu, vous avez eu, ils ont eu, elles ont eu. Alright? So, j'ai eu, tu as eu, il a eu, elle a eu, nous avons eu. Okay, so here you can see that we make double liaison. Nous avons eu. Okay, same thing here. Vous avez eu, ils ont, and then here as well, tu. Ils ont eu, elles ont eu. Alright? Let's see être now. And it goes like j'étais. So same thing here. We'll start with the imparfait form. Tu étais, il était, elle était, nous étions, vous étiez, ils étaient, elles étaient. And then the passé composé form. J'ai été, tu as été, il a été, elle a été, nous avons été, vous avez été, ils ont été, elles ont été. Okay, so let's take 1 minute again to pronounce them. J'étais, so final S not pronounced. Tu étais, same form. Il était, elle était, final T not pronounced. Here, little liaison and final S not pronounced. Nous étions, vous étiez, ils étaient, liaison as well here. And then remember, this is not pronounced. Elles étaient. Okay, then so same rule as we saw for avoir. So you get avoir here at the present form, and then you get this participe passé form, so that will repeat itself every time, and it's pronounced like été, été. All right. So j'ai été, tu as été, il a été, elle a été. So here double liaison. Nous avons été. Vous avez été, same thing here, double liaison. Vous avez été. Ils ont été. So same thing here. You get first the liaison z, and then you get the t. Okay? Ils ont été. All right? Ils ont été. Elles ont été. Okay? I hope it was clear. If you want more videos, then youtube.com/imagier, and then if you want to send me a little message and check more things, more material, it's here, imagier.net. Have a great day. Bye bye. La forme passive. So it's quite important. Take the time to relax, and we'll start right now. So I wanted to put an example. Simple sentence. Okay, here we've got Jean mange une pomme. Okay, so Jean, that's the name of the person. Mange, manger, to eat, and it's the present form. Une pomme, an apple. Okay, so if we have a look at this sentence, of course, Jean is the subject of the sentence. Then we've got mange, manger, so it's the verb. Okay, then we'll have une pomme, so that's what we call complément d'objet direct. I know it's a bit scary, so complément just because it will complete the sentence, it will give more information, okay? Then objet direct, so objet, it's not because it's an apple, okay? It could be a person, it's grammatically, it's an object, okay? So, and then direct, just because between your verb and this complément, you don't have any preposition. Okay, so normally we tend to write it like that, COD. Okay, complément d'objet direct. All right, and then if you think about the sentence, normally when you get a sentence like that, so Jean mange une pomme, well, the important thing in this sentence is the subject. Okay, for one good reason, it's just because we start with it, and as it's here in the first place, well, we tend to think that this is the most important thing of the sentence. Okay, so if we would like to put the focus on le complément d'objet direct, so if we would like to have une pomme as the main thing of the sentence, okay? So it would be actually the whole idea of this form passive, okay? So what could we do? We could first take une pomme, okay, and then of course put it in the first place, because, well, the focus will be on the first word or first thing that will come in the sentence. Then we take Jean, and then of course Jean is not coming right after because the verb should come between the two, so it will be here, okay? And after that, manger, so the verb mange here should be transformed, and that's the whole thing of the passive form, okay? You will have to use être, so you will have to conjugate être plus le participe passé of your verb, okay? In that case it's quite easy because manger belongs to the first group of verbs, so regular verbs, and then when we talk about the participe passé form, it will be manger like that with the accent on the top of the here, okay? So let's have a look how it will go. Une pomme est, so the verb être at the present form, because here we've got a sentence at the present form. Manger, okay? So as I said, you've got this accent aigu, okay? And the important thing here is that because we construct this passive form with être, then we should, at the end of the participe passé, add something if it's feminine or if it's plural. In that case, une pomme, an apple, you can see here that it's feminine, une pomme, so we will add this so the mark of the feminine. Okay, so une pomme est mangée Jean. And obviously something is missing here, okay? And the thing that we will put, or we will add to construct this passif, will be par. Alright, so now we've got this sentence, une pomme est mangée par Jean. And it's the passive form, okay? Forme active, Jean mange une pomme. Forme passive, une pomme est mangée par Jean. Alright? Let's take another example. I did put this la pomme instead of une pomme, but well, technically it's the same. The important thing is that this passive form will be, it will be possible to make it at the present form, or even at the future, at the passé composé, at the imparfait, because the only thing that will change will be être, okay? So in that case, example for le présent, Jean mange la pomme. You change it and you get la pomme est mangée par Jean. Okay, so that's the one we saw, so it's actually quite easy. But then now, let's see if we've got le futur. So the sentence will go like Jean mangera, okay, so it's this will eat, okay, la pomme. And then, if you want to put this sentence at the passive form, then la pomme sera, so remember, sera, it's the form of être at the future, okay? So that's the only thing that will change. So you definitely should know by heart all the form of être, and obviously avoir, but not avoir for this lesson, but still. So you should know them by heart because you will have to use them. For instance, in this passive form, you must use them. So la pomme sera mangée par Jean. So the rest doesn't change. That's the only thing that you will have to change. You put this être form, okay, at the correct tense. In that case, it's the futur. And then let's see le passé composé now. Jean a mangé la pomme, okay, and then if you change it and put it at the passive form. So, la pomme a été, remember this a été is the passé composé form of être, okay? Mangé par Jean. The rest doesn't change. Okay, so let's have a look at the conditionnel présent because we saw it already in the previous unit. Jean mangerait la pomme, okay, would eat, okay, c'est mangerait la pomme. So if you change it, la pomme serait, okay, and that's the conditionnel présent form of être, mangé par Jean. Okay, then imparfait, Jean mangeait la pomme était mangée par Jean. And the last one, conditionnel passé, because that's the last one we saw. Jean aurait mangé la pomme aurait été, and that's here, aurait été, conditionnel passé form of être, mangé par Jean. Okay? So remember, être, then participe passé, then par. Don't forget this par because it's quite important. La conjugaison à la forme passive. So we saw la forme passive in the previous video lesson, so I definitely advise you to watch it if you didn't do it. And then in this lesson we'll take few examples, or at least two examples, two verbs, and then we'll see how they go, okay? So remember that we will see in this lesson le présent, le futur, le passé composé, le conditionnel présent, and then l'imparfait. These are the verbs that we already covered in these lessons or in the previous lessons, okay? So that's the reason why we will try to see how they go at the passive form, all right? So remember that if you want to construct this forme passive, then the first thing will be être, and this verb être will be changed, so according to the fact whether it's present, futur, passé composé, etc. And then after that you will put this participe passé form, okay, to get your passive form, all right? So that's it. We'll take two examples. The first one will be admirer, to admire. And then the second one will be choisir, to choose, okay? But then the idea is that as we will change them in or at this form passive, so clearly it will be to be admired and to be chosen, okay? So let's see now, admirer. Présent, so it will be je suis admiré. Tu es admiré, il est admiré, elle est admirée. Nous sommes admirés, vous êtes admirés, ils sont admirés, elles sont admirées. Alright, so as you can see, être will be the only thing that will change here. Alright, well, if we are really honest, then we can say that the participe passé form here is changing as well, because if you can see, if you have a look here, it's here like that written et, and then here you just add this okay? Remember that we add this final because we've got here a feminine subject, and so this final is the mark of the feminine, so singular feminine, okay? But then if you really want to think about that phonetically, you don't pronounce it, so whether it's masculine admirer or feminine admirer, you will pronounce them the same way. But still, if you want to write it correctly, you should add this So same thing here. If we look at this last form here, we've got this S at the end. So S is the mark of the plural. So you should put it at the end. You don't pronounce it, okay? So you get admirer, but still you should put it. And here you've got, well, first the feminine and then the plural S. Phonetically, it is the same, admirer. Okay, so you've got phonetically only one form, and it's admirer. Okay, but then keep in mind that because we constructed with être here, then we should put the feminine here if the subject is feminine, the plural here if the subject is masculine plural here, and then the feminine plural here if the subject is feminine plural. Okay, so it will be the same for all the tenses. Okay, so I won't repeat that after. Okay, and then keep in mind that être, so the verb, will be the only thing that will change in these structures. All right, so let's see now le futur. Je serai admiré, tu seras admiré, il sera admiré, elle sera admirée, nous serons admirés, vous serez admirés, ils seront admirés, elles seront admirées. All right, so if we want to make this structure at the passé composé form, so j'ai été admiré, so you can see that here you've got j'ai été, all right, so it's the verb être, to be, okay, but at the passé composé form, all right. Tu as été admiré, il a été admiré, elle a été admirée, nous avons été admirés, vous avez été admirés, ils ont été admirés, elles ont été admirées. All right? So if we want to make it at the conditionnel présent form, then we will get je serais admiré, tu serais admiré, il serait admiré, elle serait admirée, nous serions admirés, vous seriez admirés, il serait admiré, elle serait admirée. Okay, so same thing here. If you look carefully, that's only the verb être that will change. And then imparfait form would be j'étais admiré, tu étais admiré, il était admiré, elle était admirée, nous étions admirés, vous étiez admirés, ils étaient admirés, elles étaient admirées. All right? So clearly it's not that difficult. The only thing that you should definitely remember by heart is the verb. It's the verb être at all the forms that we already covered, okay? And then you will have to use it, well, clearly to make this passive form, all right? So the second verb that I wanted to introduce was choisir, okay? So at the present form, it will go like je suis choisi, tu es choisi, il est choisi, elle est choisie, nous sommes choisis, vous êtes choisis, ils sont choisis, elles sont choisies. So same thing here that we had for admirer. So remember that you will have to here, for example, put the at the end for the feminine, okay? Because here we've got the feminine singular, so just add okay? You will have this s at the end here for the plural, so masculine plural, and you will have this s feminine plural form. Okay? Same rule, you don't pronounce them. So phonetically you will have choisi, 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 and choisi. So the same phonetical form, okay? And it's quite easy to remember. Je serai choisi, tu seras choisi, il sera choisi, elle sera choisie, nous serons choisis, vous serez choisis, ils seront choisis, elles seront choisies. Okay? Let's see the passé composé form. J'ai été choisi, tu as été choisi, il a été choisi, elle a été choisie, nous avons été choisis, vous avez été choisis, ils ont été choisis, elles ont été choisies. Then the conditionnel présent form, je serai choisi, tu serais choisi, il serait choisi, elle serait choisie, nous serions choisis, vous seriez choisis, il serait choisi, elle serait choisie. Okay? And last but not least, imparfait. J'étais choisi, tu étais choisi, il était choisi, elle était choisie, nous étions choisis, vous étiez choisis, ils étaient choisis, elles étaient choisies. La géographie. L'Europe. Okay, so I did put this F just to give you the information that it's feminine, okay, because it doesn't show here with the article. L'Europe. L'Asie. L'Afrique. L'Amérique du Nord. L'Amérique centrale. L'Amérique du Sud. Okay, so let's see them one more time. L'Europe. Remember this final it's not really present. It only gives you the possibility to pronounce this P at the end, okay? Europe. L'Asie. Same thing here. Final is not pronounced. L'Afrique. Same thing here. Final it's only the k at the end that you will hear. L'Afrique. Okay? Amérique, same thing as Afrique. Amérique du Nord. Final D, not pronounced. L'Amérique du Nord. L'Amérique centrale. Same thing here. Centrale, remember, E-N, nasal, so it goes in your nose. En. Centrale. All right? L'Amérique centrale. L'Amérique du Sud. Here you should pronounce the D. Sud. Okay? L'Amérique du Sud. All right? So one more time. L'Europe, l'Asie, l'Afrique, l'Amérique du Nord, l'Amérique centrale, l'Amérique du Sud. L'Australie, l'Océanie, l'Antarctique, l'Eurasie, l'océan Atlantique, l'océan Pacifique. Okay, so let's see them one more time. L'Australie, final E not pronounced. L'Océanie, final E not pronounced. Remember, Q-U-E here, it's K. Okay, so tic. L'Antarctique, l'Antarctique. L'Eurasie, final E not pronounced. L'Eurasie. Okay, same thing here for the ic. Okay, l'océan Atlantique. 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 L'océan Pacifique. L'océan Indien. L'océan Arctique. La mer du Nord. La mer de Chine. La mer des Antilles. La mer Méditerranée. Okay, so let's see them. L'océan Indien. So remember here it's nasal and it can be quite tricky. So first you've got this un here and then you've got this yin. Okay, Indien. L'océan Indien. L'océan Arctique. Remember, tic, ic. La mer du Nord. Final D not pronounced. La mer de Chine. Remember, don't insist on the E. Chine. Okay? And then this CH, Chine. All right? La mer des Antilles. So here it's quite interesting because, well, you've got this E and then double L, S. Okay? So final S and E, really you don't pronounce them. So you get this E sound. Antilles. Okay? La mer des Antilles. The liaison between the two. Des Antilles. La mer des Antilles. La mer Méditerranée. Okay, here final E not pronounced, but then you pronounce this E at the end. Méditerranée. Okay, la mer Méditerranée. La mer Rouge. La mer Caspienne. La mer Noire. La mer de Bering. Okay, so la mer Rouge. Remember, G and then E, J. Rouge. Okay? La mer Rouge. La mer Caspienne. Okay? E and then double consonant here, and it's the same, and N, so it does open the sound here. So it's E. Caspienne. Caspienne. Okay? Then here, la mer Noire. Same thing here that we had previously. Final E not pronounced, okay? And then OI, remember, wa, noir, noir. La mer Noire, okay? La mer de Bering. La météo, so I hope it's okay with you. Let's start right now. La météo. Un nuage. Une pluie. Une goutte de pluie. Un éclair. Une brume. Un brouillard. Alright, so let's see them one more time. Un nuage. Une pluie. Une goutte de pluie. Un éclair. So you can see I make this little liaison between the two. Un éclair. Une brume. Un brouillard. Final D not pronounced. Une rosée. un verglas, un ciel clair, un ciel couvert, un ciel nuageux, une bruine. So let's see them. Une rosée, final E not pronounced. Un verglas, final S not pronounced. Un verglas. Un ciel clair. Un ciel couvert, final T not pronounced. Un ciel couvert. Un ciel nuageux. This can be quite tricky, but take the time to nuageux. Remember, final X here, not pronounced. Nuageux, okay? Nuageux. Un ciel nuageux, okay? Une bruine. Une pluie. Une neige. Une averse. Un orage, un ouragan, une averse de grêle, une pluie, final E not pronounced, une neige, une averse, so same thing here, a neige, final E not pronounced, you only pronounce this j, same thing here, averse, okay, S is pronounced, the E is not pronounced. Un orage, same thing here, j, okay, not the E. Un ouragan, so liaison here, like we had here as well. Une averse de grêle. All right? So I wanted to put them with the article un ou une to make it more clear, but it's clear that in some cases, well, you will have to use the instead of so le or la. Okay, instead of un ou une, but it was just to make it more clear that I wanted to use only un ou une, and after that you can decide whether you want to use this article or the other one. Les climats, okay, so it will be a short one, vocabulary one, but still it's quite interesting. Let's see that. Les climats. Les climats tropicaux. Les climats tempérés. Les climats polaires. Okay, so les climats tropicaux. So you can see that even if we've got the plural form here, S, we don't pronounce the S, and then we don't pronounce the T either. Les climats tropicaux. Final X not pronounced. Les climats tempérés. Final S not pronounced, but then you should definitely pronounce the accent. Tempéré, okay? Les climats polaires. So same thing here. E and S are not pronounced. Polaire. Okay? Les climats continentaux, les climats subtropicaux, les climats de montagne, les climats subarctiques. Okay, so les climats continentaux, remember, final X not pronounced, and then this AU together, they give you the sound O, okay? Les climats subtropicaux, les climats de montagne. So remember here, O-N, on, mon, ta, and then this G-N-E, ny, montagne. All right? Les climats subarctiques. Bonjour à tous and welcome to Learn French with Vincent, and this is Unité 8, leçon L. And in this lesson we'll discover together le plus que parfait. So it's quite interesting, not that difficult, and quite useful. So let's see what le plus que parfait is. So first in this video, as usual for the tenses, because it's a past tense, we'll first discover together or see together l'utilisation. So when should we use le plus que parfait? And then how do we make, construct, build this tense? Okay, the first thing, utilisation. When do we use le plus que parfait? Important. If you want to, well, should I? Yeah, I will read that the French way first. Okay, exprimer des faits qui se sont passés avant d'autres faits passés. Oh my God, it can be quite tricky. It's not really tricky. Let's say that if you want to resume or if you want to say it fast, le plus que parfait is the past in the past. Okay, so let's see Now you've got the timeline here. Let's see, first, second, and third thing. The first one could be le présent, so we are here right now, okay? Then this is the past, so if you want to express something that happened in the past, whether you use le passé composé or we saw that's previously l'imparfait, okay? And then you've got here le plus que parfait, okay? So first, if you want to talk about what happened yesterday or then even years ago, you will have to use whether passé composé or imparfait, okay? But then, if you want to make a relation to something that happened previously, you should definitely use this plus que parfait form, okay? So that's the reason why we tend to say that it's the past in the past, all right? So let's have an example. Ce matin, j'ai mangé le gâteau que tu avais préparé hier. Okay? If we have a look, we've got two verbs in this sentence. This is the first one, j'ai mangé. It is the passé composé form. This is the second one. Tu avais préparé. This is le plus que parfait. Ok? Passé composé, plus que parfait. So what do you want to say here? You want to say, ce matin, this morning, j'ai mangé, manger is to eat, le gâteau, the cake, que, that, tu avais préparé, préparé is to prepare, yesterday, hier. Okay? So you want to say that, ce matin, j'ai mangé le gâteau. Okay, so it happened in the morning, this morning, and then yesterday you had prepared this cake. Okay, so that's the reason why in the second part of the sentence you use le plus que parfait, because this action happened before. All right, so it was the past in the past. Okay, so let's see now how to construct it. And it's not that difficult, because first, if you have a look, so I did put some regular verbs here. First one, je mangeais au restaurant. So this form here is the imparfait. Okay, so why did I put the imparfait? Just for you to have a look at the ending of this verb. This is avoir. Okay, so you can see that they end actually the same way, A-I-S, A-I-S, okay? And then if you have a look here, you've got manger, manger, so you can notice that this is the participe passé form of the verb manger. Manger is to eat, okay? So first you've got avoir, then you've got the participe passé, okay? Maybe it rings a bell for you. Second example, tu regardais la télévision, okay? Tu avais regardé la télévision. So if you have a look, well, it looks the same. You've got first avoir, then you've got participe passé here, okay? And then, so I took this verb aller. Aller is to go, and remember, when we've got these composed tenses, it's a bit tricky because it doesn't use avoir as most of the verbs, but it uses être, and look, here, it's the same. Il était allé. So it does use être here, and then we've got the participe passé form. All right? So the rule is that if you want to construct this plus que parfait form, then you should use first avoir at the imparfait, then the participe passé, and you will get your plus que parfait form. Okay? In some cases, you will use être at the imparfait form, then the participe passé, and you will get le plus que parfait. Okay? We've been covering already few composed tenses in French, and well, it does follow exactly the same rules. Okay? So that's the reason why it will be quite familiar for you, because the following verbs, aller, to go, arriver, to arrive, descendre, to go down, devenir, to become, entrer, to enter, to come in, monter, to go up, mourir, to die, naître, to born, partir, to leave, rester, to stay, retourner, to return, sortir, to go out, tomber, to fall, and then venir, to come. So all these verbs will use être, as they do for all the other composed tense that we saw, like passé composé, for instance. Okay? And then all the verbes réfléchis, so reflexive verbs like se regarder, s'appeler, se présenter. So all these verbs will also require être, okay, for the plus que parfait. Okay? So let's see one more time the imparfait form of avoir and être as well, but we'll start with avoir just because that's the form, these are the forms that you will have to use when you want to construct this plus que parfait. So it goes like j'avais, tu avais, il avait, elle avait, nous avions, vous aviez, ils avaient, elles avaient. Okay, and then for être, j'étais, tu étais, il était, elle était, nous étions, vous étiez, ils étaient, elles étaient. Alright, so you can see here that we've got this AIS ending and AIT ending. You pronounce them the same way, okay? J'avais, tu avais, il avait. And then you saw probably that we've got also here A-V-A-I-E-N-T, but then you pronounce it avait. So the same way as we pronounce here, okay? J'avais, tu avais, il avait, nous avions, vous aviez, ils avaient. Okay? The only difference is that you will have to make the liaison between the two. Elles avaient, ils avaient. Okay? Same thing here. Était, était, était. And the last one, était. So you pronounce them the same way. J'étais, tu étais, il était, elle était. Nous étions, vous étiez, ils étaient, elles étaient. Alright? So, remember that for these participe passé forms, so the second part that you should have. Okay? When we're talking about verbs, so in French we've got three groups. Okay? The first one is the ER verbs, so verbs ending with ER. Only one exception, and it's aller, but then the good news is that aller will behave the same way, so it won't be tricky. So remember that when you've got a verb like parler, for instance, here, parler is to talk or to speak, it ends with ER. Okay, you will take this ER away and you will replace it with E accent aigu, parler. Same thing, regarder, to watch, you take this ER away and you put this E here. Aller, even if it doesn't belong to the first group, it will behave the same way, so that's a good news. Aller, ER, you take it away and then you put this E, okay? Second group of verbs, ER, unfortunately for you, not all the ER verbs, okay? But then these are from the second group. Choisir, to choose. You take this ER away and then you change it. You put I instead. Choisi. Finir, to finish, to end. ER away, same rule. And then you put fini. Unir, ER, you take it away, to unite. And then you get uni. Okay, after that, when we talk about the third group, it's quite tricky, and my advice would be to try to learn them by heart like in many languages, but still we have some subgroups. Okay, so you've got a list here. So the one that will end with U, for instance, connaître, to know, être will become U, connu, all right. Voir, to see, voir will become U, vu. Partir, well, in that case, they will have this I. Even if it ends with ER, it's not from the second group, it's from the third group, okay? So, but then it becomes parti, okay? So quite easy. Rire will become ri, okay? Partir, to leave, and then rire, to laugh. Iter, like écrire, to write. IRE will become iter here. Dire, to say. IRE will become IT. Okay, remember, you put this T, you don't pronounce it. écrit, dit. All right, and then the last subgroup here, or I think it's the last, I'm not sure about that anymore. Mettre, E-T-T-R-E will become E-S. Me, same advice here, don't pronounce the final S like we had here. T is not pronounced, S is not pronounced. Me, mettre, to put. And then prendre, prendre is to take, okay, E-N-D-R-E, and it will become E-S, pris. All right. An example for parler, so parler will go like that for the plus que parfait. J'avais parlé, tu avais parlé, il avait parlé, elle avait parlé, nous avions parlé, vous aviez parlé, ils avaient parlé, elles avaient parlé. Okay, so if you look carefully, I did put this E in orange just to show you that when you construct, I mean, a normal structure or simple structure like subject, verb, okay, nothing in between, then if you have avoir, you don't put anything at the end. So you don't need to add this E for the feminine or S for the plural. Just keep your participe passé like that. If you constructed with avoir. But, have a look here. Aller, you write it like that, aller. This is the masculine singular form, so basic form. Feminine singular form, you will have to add this E for the feminine. Masculine plural form, you will have to add this S for the plural. And then here, feminine plural form, you will have to add this S, so for the feminine and S for the plural. The good news is that phonetically they go the same way, aller, 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 all right? But if you want to write correctly, remember to put for the feminine, S for the plural, and obviously S for the feminine plural. Okay, so let's see aller now. J'étais allé, tu étais allé, il était allé, elle était allée, nous étions allés, vous étiez allés, ils étaient allés, elles étaient allées. All right, so you can hear that here, for instance, I make here a liaison, ils étaient, and then here I make a liaison as well. Ils étaient allés, elles étaient allées. All right, and then remember, aller, 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 and then aller. So the same phonetical form, okay? If you want to construct this plus que parfait, so I took this example with a verbe réfléchi, okay? Je m'étais présenté, tu t'étais présenté, il s'était présenté, elle s'était présentée, nous nous étions présentés, vous vous étiez présenté, il s'était présenté, elle s'était présentée. All right, so remember all these reflexive verbs, so les verbes réfléchis will require all the time être, okay? Remember, avoir at the imperfect form, and then participe passé, and you will get a beautiful plus que parfait, and in some cases, être at the imperfect form plus participe passé will give you another beautiful plus que parfait. That was it for the plus que parfait. If you want more videos, then youtube.com/imagier, and then the website is here, imagier.net. Have a great day. Bye bye.